Mushoku Tensei Vol21 by Rifujin Namaganote, cast by Artale Studio. If you are interested in creating your own audio drama like this, please visit artale.ai and use promotion code ARTALE to activate your account. Now, enjoy the story. Chapter 1. Playing Dumb. We touched down in the Adventurous District. It must have been 10 or 15 minutes since we took off. Phew. I'd practiced this a bunch, so I rarely botched the landing when coming down from a magic leap anymore. No broken legs from the impact this time. It might have only been 15 minutes in the air, but since Zenith's disappearance, several hours had already passed. I needed to find her quickly. As impatient as I was to get going, we needed to think this through. When I'd returned to Cliff's house, Zenith was gone. Apparently, Geese had taken her on a walk. I thought she'd surely be back before long, but there was still no sign of her even as night crept up on us. Geese might have been an S-ranked adventurer, but he was no good in a fight, and he was a demon besides. Everyone knew how demon folk were treated in the Holy Country of Millis. Because he could pass for beast folk, Geese avoided some of the abuse, but it was possible the city guard had gotten the wrong idea and arrested him for kidnapping a mentally impaired woman. I also didn't want to think about what the Latria family would do if they heard that Zenith was off with a demon. Claire Latria, that old bat, wanted to force Zenith to get married in her current state. Who knew what that woman was capable of? I needed to get Zenith in my sight and under my protection as soon as possible. Let's get going, Aisha.
Wait a sec, big brother.
Aisha replied. She sank to the ground, her legs shaking so badly that her knees knocked together. She seemed to be too weak to stand. There's no time, come on.
Oh, okay, but can we at least walk on the ground?
Ah, so Aisha didn't like heights. That was my bad. I seemed to be surrounded by people who were bad with heights. Sylphie was terrified of high places, and I wasn't that keen on them myself. I bet Eris liked them, though. Now wasn't the time to be thinking about that. If we run along the ground, we'll cause a traffic accident. Come on, let's go find Zenith. Right now we had to think about searching for Zenith, or for Geese who was with her. I couldn't leave her alone in her current condition.
I can't walk.
Fine, I'll give you a piggyback ride.
You're not gonna fly?
I won't. I said as I hoisted Aisha up off the ground onto my back, now to begin the investigation. The Adventurers District was big, though. Where to start?
How about checking the taverns, big brother? It's dinner time. Maybe they went out to eat somewhere.
Oh, good idea. I followed Aisha's suggestion and we jogged along, peering into the taverns that lined the street as we hunted for Zenith or Geese. Everywhere was packed with the dinner crowd, but I didn't have to go inspecting every customer like an idiot. By limiting our questioning to staff, we could cut down the time spent at each location. I was sure someone would have seen them. A woman with a vacant stare accompanied by a monkey-faced demon wouldn't be easily forgotten. Though it had been dark for a while now, the Adventurers District was still crammed full of people. Adventurers back from a quest and clutching their prizes, and the merchants they bargained with. Adventurers done with a job and looking for a meal, and the bar and innkeepers calling out to them. I heard a few fights going on, too. Perhaps because of the time, there weren't any carriages passing, so it was unlikely that Zenith had gone wandering and gotten pulled under the wheels of one. That, at least, was a relief.
Monkey-faced? You must mean Geese. Yeah, I saw him over at the Dappled Light Tavern.
At the third tavern, I got a lead. Geese had been in this country a fair while now, and knowing him, his reputation preceded him. Did he have a woman with him?
A woman? Dunno about that,
said the barkeep, frowning. I figured I might as well go and see for myself. I asked him the address, then pressed a copper coin into his hand with a word of thanks before hurrying off to the Dappled Light Tavern. I had a real bad feeling. The Dappled Light Tavern was in a bad part of town. Leering men swaggered along, eyeing the women who loitered on the street. I was pretty sure those were prostitutes. We probably weren't far from the pleasure district. Even Nilishan had one, apparently. The men were looking our way, intrigued. I suppose Aisha and I looked too vanilla to blend in here.
Well, hey, kid, you come to play then?
One of them actually came up and started chatting to me. Had I come to play, I was of course always striving to up my game, improve my performance, but right now we weren't in bed, weren't doing that.
Big brother, put me down. This is embarrassing.
Never mind. They were just intrigued by how Aisha clung to my back. I put her down, and the staring stopped. The sign read Dappled Light Tavern. The tavern looked pretty standard, but the patrons coming in and out were a seedy crowd. Long ago, the scowl on the face of the man leaving now would have had me scared witless. Since coming to this world, though, I'd grown tough. Now I could even walk, fearless, into a place like this. Honestly, the Rookwag mercenary band office in Sharia was more intimidating. Still, I didn't like thinking about Zenith hanging around in a place like this. What the hell had Geese been thinking? I liked the guy, but if he'd gotten confused and tried to sell Zenith to a brothel or something, I'd never forgive him. I'd take both his arms. His legs, too.
Welcome.
The barkeep's spirited greeting carried over the general hubbub as we entered. The tavern might have looked shady from the outside, but once inside the atmosphere was friendly. I didn't feel like an outsider here. The patrons weren't all rough types either. There were plenty of ordinary-looking adventurers, too. I quickly scanned the faces in the room, then turned to the barkeep to...
And then this was the real clever bit. I said, I reckon all 3 teleportation circles are traps, and there's another path.
I'd recognize that voice anywhere. In the back of the room, a monkey-faced man was throwing back drinks as he boasted to the young adventurers seated around him. His companions were a boy with spiked-up hair, another with long hair and a nose piercing, and a girl with slightly slanted eyes and hair dyed an unnatural color. He looked like, how should I put it? Kind of an old poser. Zenith wasn't there. I looked around the room, but I couldn't see her anywhere.
Then, just like I'd suspected, we damn well found one. A secret passage to the boss's rooms.
I approached the table, and Geese noticed me. In a split second, his expression changed to one of horror. Geese.
Hey, boss, I was just talking about you. You lot. This guy here is the quagmire I told you about.
The other 3 gaped at me. The girl, her hand pressed to her breast, actually leaned her chair back on 2 legs away from me. What the hell had he been saying about me? It stung a bit, having a girl recoil from me like that. But whatever, that wasn't important right now. I had a mountain of questions for him. But where to begin? First off, maybe I could lure him into telling me whether the man-god was involved or not. Geese, I didn't want to believe it. You, my enemy.
Hey, say what?
He told you everything, right? Visited you in a dream, told you what I'd do now.
Dreams. What are you talking about?
Asked Deese with a nervous laugh. He was deflecting. I pointed my finger at him and concentrated my magic. Once the stone cannon formed, it began to spin rapidly, like a drill whose buzzing reverberated around the room. The young adventurers, their eyes wide, made to stand up. Stay where you are, I said brusquely, and they stopped. I looked into Geese's eyes and asked again. What words did he fill your head with? Tell me everything and I'll let you live.
Well, whoa! Ha! See, cut that out. I'm sorry, I don't know what I did, but it wasn't my fault. Now get that thing away from me.
I drew my finger back a little. Geese jumped from his chair and threw himself on the ground at my feet. Without a hint of dignity, he groveled and apologized.
Looks like I really messed up. I'm sorry I made you mad. Rudeus. Look, see how sorry I am. I just don't know what I did. Can you just tell me that? So I can apologize properly. You gotta forgive me.
This all caught me off guard. It wasn't the reaction I'd expected at all. Maybe he wasn't serving the man-god. But no, it was too early to know for sure. Even with that small niggling doubt, however, I felt bad seeing my longtime companion bowing and scraping in front of me. Where's my mother?
Huh?
Said Geese, looking up with his head tilted to one side. The expression on his face, red with drink, was one of bewilderment. If he was acting, it was a great performance. My mother, Zenith Greyrat.
Zenith? I just showed her around a bit, then took her home.
She's not at the house. That's why I'm here. Just then, one of the boys snickered. I looked around and saw Aisha was standing beside me, mimicking my pose and nodding. It was just family resemblance, neither of us were in the mood to joke. I glared at the boy and he froze with a tiny squeak. Geez, what had Geese been telling these people about me?
Huh? But, here now, I definitely took her home, you know.
Where'd you leave her?
Where? Well, at the entry to the Adventurers District, a servant from the house came to get her, so I left her with them.
A servant? Our servant? Cliff and I had been at the church headquarters. Aisha had been shopping, and Wendy had been at the house. No, wait. He wasn't talking about my house. Someone from the Latria family?
Yeah, I checked their coat of arms properly and all. They were Latria servant, no doubt about it.
My pulse quickened. Zenith had been taken by a servant of the Latrias. Calm down, I told myself. Get your thoughts in order. First things first, Geese had taken Zenith out. Why? What were you doing taking my mother out of the house in the first place?
I didn't mean anything by it, boss. It's just been a while since I saw you or her, so I wanted to catch up, that's all.
So it had been a whim. Okay, I guess that made sense. But hold on, something didn't line up. How did you know where Cliff lives?
'Cause I went to see the Latrias first. I don't much like going there, but I thought if you were there to receive me, but then they said something came up, and you and Zenith were staying elsewhere, so that's where I should go. So I came all the way over here.
I thought you hated going into the Divine District.
That's just because there's a demon. You never know when someone's gonna jump you for no reason when you hang around in there. It's not like I'd rather die or something.
His excuse sounded weak, too vague. Part of it was probably the alcohol, but maybe something was eating at him. There was a pause. But wait, I got it. I knew what had happened. It had gone down like this, give or take a few details. Yesterday, I let my temper get the best of me at the Latria Manor and stormed out. They must have set a tail on us as we walked home. I was careless, and they found out where we were staying. I'd been oblivious. If the Latrias had come and demanded that the Grimers hand over Zenith, they knew they'd be refused. They were in enemy factions, and the current political climate made launching an outright attack on the Grimers untenable. Although the demon expulsionists were ascendant at present, one misstep could mean their downfall. So the Latrias used Geese, a totally ignorant demon dude who'd fallen right into their hands. Any other day they'd have driven a creature like him away. But today they acquired a pawn no one would expect demon expulsionists to use. They manipulated him into bringing Zenith out into the open. They probably didn't grab her immediately because they were concerned about a bodyguard. But there was no bodyguard. I was out, and by horrible coincidence, so was Aisha. Ultimately, luck was on their side. They took Zenith without resistance, and I expected they'd have no qualms feigning ignorance later. Geese? No, I can't say I know anyone of that name. Why would you ever imagine that we'd be acquainted with a filthy demon, or something like that? Now that they'd kidnapped Zenith, they just had to hide her. It would be a simple matter to assign her a carer to keep watch on her.
Hey, boss, what's going on?
When the Latrias told you where we were, did they say anything else?
Yeah, they said Zenith must have missed being home, so I should take her out into the city.
It wasn't fair to blame Geese. He didn't know any better. I was the one who told him that we were going to the Latrias and that we'd be staying there. If he thought I was in there, he was unlikely to suspect anything even when the Latrias welcomed him without their usual harshness. Then they filled his head with their stories. Of course, he ended up their puppet. I'd been careless. I should have taken Zenith home today. After seeing who the Latrias were, we shouldn't have stayed in Militian a moment longer. It would have taken some time, but I ought to have taken her back to our house, then come back to give the mercenary band's Militian chapter my undivided attention. It wasn't like I was pressed for time. I kept a potential weakness close by me. That was a mistake. I should have brought Zenith back for some quiet sightseeing after everything was over. Regret wasn't going to help this late in the game, though. I needed to get Zenith back. Geese, the thing is, having softened a little on him, I filled Geese in on everything that had happened, then asked for his help. Yeah, he'd been manipulated, but he wasn't totally blameless either. I was pretty sure he wasn't serving the man god after his latest reaction, and we needed every halfway competent ally we could get in these circumstances.
You serious? Now I think about it. It was weird how the Latriers just told me the address without making a thing of it, even without you there to go in between. I just assumed you'd cleared it with them, boss, so that's why they said to take her outside.
I'd been reckless and shown my enemy my weak point, but everyone makes mistakes. I'd get Zenith back right away.
Okay, I'm in. I'll help you out.
Thanks. With Geese on board, we decided to head straight for the Latria Manor, though I was half despairing. This wasn't how we'd get her back. The manor was dead silent. It was past dinner time now, far closer to bedtime. I'd been carrying 2 people with me, and that slowed me down. So I got us there as quickly as possible. Aisha looked like she might cry.
You promised.
You can guess the route we took. They're still up. The lights were still on in the manor, yet there was no one at the gate, not even a bell. What were you supposed to do if you wanted to call them? Maybe people just yelled. How did they plan on receiving guests? But then they'd probably meant to turn away anyone calling at this hour without consideration. Oh, well. It's Rudeus! Is anyone home? If the neighbors complained, that wasn't my problem. It was perhaps a stretch to say justice was on my side, but I had probable cause. If the Latrias were behind Zenith's kidnapping, they were in the wrong. If they weren't, then the servant Geese had met was both an imposter and the real kidnapper. I'd done my best to cut all ties with this family, but if someone was using their name falsely, that was their problem as well. But no one came out. I banged on the gate harder and yelled some more. The force of my blows, strengthened by my magic armor, bent the gate's golden latticework further and further out of shape. I need to talk to you about my mother. But of course, no reply came. Well, about time to smash my way in. If you don't get out here, I'll beat your gate down. Just in case they didn't answer, I concentrated magic in my right hand. If they thought this flimsy gate could stop me, they didn't know me.
Whoa there, boss! Hold on, that's not gonna end well.
That stopped me. It was true. Breaking down the gate was extreme. This situation was getting to me. I was getting frantic. The other day, Claire had insisted on marrying Zenith off and making her have babies. Find a partner, hold a wedding, set up house, have kids. Actually, thinking through that whole time-consuming process, we still had time. No need to panic. If I kept an eye on the Latrius' movements, they would eventually lead me to Zenith. There was one weak link in that lengthy chain of events, though. You just had to zoom in on the having kids link. And ta-da! There it was. If you got a man and a woman, threw them in bed together, and waited about 30 minutes, that was all the time you needed. It'd be what they call the fait accompli. By the time I found Zenith, chances were high that that egg would already be scrambled. I wanted to believe Claire wouldn't be that ruthless about her own daughter, but I couldn't put anything past a hag who'd marry off her mentally impaired daughter. That was why I needed to hurry. Even so, breaking down the gate was rash. I could have broken through in one shot with my stone cannon, but the bang would have garnered attention. I didn't know the laws of this country, but in most of them, breaking down a gate is a crime. If people came and called the police and I ended up a criminal, that would bring trouble on Cliff and the Pope as well. I needed to get a handle on what was happening before I acted. You're right. If I use earth magic to open the lock, we can sneak.
Sneak where? Exactly.
Came a voice from the other side of the gate. I looked and saw that. At some point, 5 men and women had appeared on the other side of the lattice gate. 3 soldiers, a butler, and an old woman dressed in fine clothes.
Whatever do you mean by this? Banging on my gate at this hour?
It was Claire Latria. I was silent for a moment. Had she come out after hearing my voice, or had she been lying in wait for me? Claire, isn't this a bit underhanded?
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about how you tricked Geese into helping you abduct my mother. At this, Claire looked at Geese and frowned.
Abduct your mother. I'm sure I haven't the faintest idea what you mean.
I thought you'd play dumb, I said and gave Geese a meaningful look. He nodded, then pointed to one of the 3 guards.
That one? That's the one who came for Zenith.
I looked at the guard, who shrugged, trying to look innocent. like he didn't know what we were talking about.
Doctrine forbids any of our family from fraternizing with demon folk. We would never ever employ a filthy demon like that.
No surprises so far.
If you believe Zenith has been abducted, then there ought to be a search party. Perhaps this demon is behind it. I'd like to hear him explain himself, in detail.
Geese took a step back, grunting in dismay. She meant to shut him up. Now that I thought about it, if Geese had been murdered tonight, then I doubted I'd have ever found my way here. It was a good thing I moved quickly on this. You're telling me you have absolutely no idea where my mother is?
None at all, and even if I did, you cut yourself out of this family. I have no obligation to tell you anything.
The hag just kept layering on that venom. What was her angle? What good would antagonizing me do her? It couldn't be that she was actually one of the man-god's disciples, could it? I couldn't figure out her deal. Might it also be possible that she truly didn't know anything? In which case was Geese lying? Why would he do that? He was a liar, but not the kind who did it to hurt people, I was sure. Claire, she huffed through her nose, turning her cold eyes back to me.
Yes, Rudeus? If you think I am lying, by all means go ahead and search the house.
She was confident I wouldn't find anything then, or she'd already moved Zenith elsewhere.
If that's quite all, I must ask you to leave now. You are no longer a relation of the Latry, isn't that so?
I was silent. My expression was all bitterness, I'm sure. I had my prime suspect right in front of me, and no way of getting to the truth. I had her right here, but I couldn't think of what to say. I was so afraid for Zenith, and yet I'd never get her whereabouts out of this woman. The thought came to me that at this point I might as well abduct Claire and make her tell me by whatever means necessary. Actually, maybe that wasn't such a bad idea. I had no evidence, only Geese's word. But if it was really true, and the Latrius had taken her— Wait a minute, calm down, I told myself. Talking came first. I knew when I came she'd probably played dumb. Talking would bring the truth out. A person might look unpleasant until you tried talking to them and found they weren't all bad. Hadn't I just learned that? My mother. Is my mother a relation to the Latria family?
She is my daughter. A mother has an obligation to care for her prodigal children.
Bullshit. That's what you call forcing her into a marriage she can't consent to? Claire didn't reply. I'm her son. My father told me to protect her with my life, and I'm going to honor that obligation. I'll never abandon her, and so long as I'm alive, I'm going to look after her. So please, give Mom back. Claire didn't reply. She did, however, look away as though she couldn't bear to meet my gaze. What was that about? Was that doubt? Did some part of her think what she was doing was wrong? Claire had never come across as such an awful person when Therese talked about her. There had to be some miscommunication here. Yes, that was it. Right. I had to restrain myself, talk reasonably, and get her to tell me what she wanted.
The guard is here.
I was wrong. She hadn't been averting her eyes from mine, but rather looking at something else. Toward the road. A group who had to be the guard was running toward us, lamps raised.
If you persevere any further, I will have you arrested as an intruder. Well?
I glared back at her. This obstinate, heartless old hag. She wasn't listening to a thing I said. I imagined taking her as a hostage and using her to demand Zenith's return. This gate meant nothing to me. I could smash through it, lift her up by the throat, and shout for the others to bring Zenith out at once. It would be over in less than 2 seconds, an instant. But would it get Zenith back? I made myself look once more into the hag's cold eyes. She didn't look concerned, on the contrary. Her eyes seemed to goad me to try it. She couldn't think I was helpless. Last time I was here, I'd flown off the handle. I'd been so angry my own memory was a blur, but I heard later that I'd sent 6 or 7 guards flying. She currently had 2 guards, with another 2 running toward us. That was significantly fewer than I'd dealt with last time. Numbers weren't everything, but she had to know I had no issue using force if it came to that. Yet here she was with only this gate between us. I could take you captive and make you tell me where Zenith is.
Please, proceed, if you think it'll get her back.
How was she so confident? She knew I could do it if I wanted to. She knew I got violent when I was pissed off. Did she not care what happened to her? Why was she doing this? Shit, I cursed silently. I really couldn't read her. Was she trying to make me get violent? In front of the guard, perhaps? Claire, you haven't received a message in a dream, have you?
Excuse me? A message? What are you on about now?
For just a moment, her ice-cold mask cracked and she gaped at me. That was the face of someone who really didn't know anything, much the same as Geese's earlier. No, she wasn't a disciple of the man-god either. The confusion vanished in seconds. With a dismissive tut, she looked away from me and back at the guards running toward us.
We're the city guard from the Cathedral Knights Arrow Company, ma'am. Heard there was a disturbance. Is everything all right?
Well, officers, these...
Thank you. I'm done here for today. I felt thoroughly defeated as I made my way home along streets lined with houses. My mind was spinning. I knew I wasn't thinking logically. Unspeakable rage and frustration roiled inside me. In the end, I still didn't know where Zenith was, but my conversation with Claire, her tight-lipped expression, and her answers had me convinced. Claire had manipulated Geese and kidnapped Zenith, no doubt in my mind. I probably could have handled things better, but even so, without bothering to even try to talk things through, she'd abducted Zenith, then played dumb and snubbed me. Damn it.
Hey, I'm sorry about this. I really screwed things up.
No, Geese, it's not your fault. You came all the way to the Divine District for my mother, even though you didn't want to.
I guess.
Geese hadn't done this. He was a pawn in her scheme and nothing more. The timing seemed a little too perfect, but being in the wrong place at the wrong time was how people ended up as pawns. While I was looking the other way, my enemy had been waiting for their moment to strike. Geese, can you ask around about my mother?
I can try, but it might be tough.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Geese was a demon. Passing soldiers eyed him with suspicion just for walking down the street in a residential area like this. It'd be tough indeed for him to ask around for information in the Divine District. The guard might even throw him in jail. Still, he could be a more subtle kind of help. If the other side were going to play it like that, using whatever cowardly tricks they could, then fine. I had some tricks of my own. From this day on, Rudeus Greyrat was the enemy of the demon expulsionists. Old Claire had herself to thank for that. Aisha, Geese, what comes next will be a little dangerous. I'm counting on you both.
Of course, big brother, but what are you going to do?
We're going to kidnap the blessed child.
What? What? What's with the crazy talk all of a sudden? You can't, boss!
The Latrias have strong ties to the Temple Knights, and the Temple Knights are with the Cardinal. They maintain their influence through the Blessed Child, meaning the Blessed Child will make the most effective hostage. Anyone else, there'd be the possibility that they'd just sacrifice that piece, but the Blessed Child guarantees we'll get my mother back. My opponents had resorted to kidnapping, so I wanted an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. I couldn't think of any better candidate than the Blessed Child to use in a hostage exchange.
Effective? Sure. But what about after that? Assuming we get Zenith back safe, we'll turn the whole of Millis against us.
Screw the Holy Country of Millis. With Orsted's brute force and Ariel's political clout, we'd beat them into submission. I'd given up on operating here. Zenith was way more important in my eyes. The fight against the man-god mattered too, but what was this all for if I threw away what I loved most?
It might be all right for you, boss, but I'm a demon. After all that, before they know I'm involved with you, they ill kill me.
The word kill slowed me down a little. My head cleared. Geese was right. If I made enemies of the Latrias and the Temple Knights along with them, I wouldn't just be putting myself in danger, but everyone around me. And they'd have an army full of types like I'd met earlier today. Who knew what they were capable of? The Pope would probably be fine, but Cliff was sure to become a major target. I remembered that in the future diary, Aisha and Zenoba had been killed by Militian knights. If I made Millis my enemy, we wouldn't be safe even back in Sharia. And that wasn't even getting into the obstacles it would almost certainly throw up against future progress. The followers of Millis were all over the central continent. They could easily get in the way. There was no reason the Holy Knights of Millis shouldn't be our allies. If we were enemies when Laplace was reincarnated, no one would be happier about it than the man-god. Was kidnapping her even a good move to begin with? But no, surely the man-god wasn't trying to get me to kidnap the blessed child. That was paranoia talking. Then I recalled something. Behind closed doors, the Pope had implied he wanted to do something about the blessed child and her cardinalist supporters. If I played things right, I might be able to get Zenith back while also bringing down the Latrius and the Cardinal. I wasn't too concerned about coming out on the Pope's side. No matter what I did, if I wanted to sell Rougeard figures, I'd already picked a side. I guess Cliff didn't really want me declaring my team yet, but he'd understand. The only point that nagged at me was Therese. Therese, the captain of the Blessed Child's Guard. She'd saved me 10 years ago and again today. This was no way to repay that kindness. Damn it. Aisha, what do you think? Her face was grave, but she looked up when I spoke.
I think kidnapping the blessed child is going too far.
Right.
You're always cool and collected, so I feel like this isn't like you, big brother.
Your big brother isn't usually all that cool and collected, I thought. Still, if she felt that way, it proved I really wasn't thinking clearly. Right. At times like this, it was easy to make a bad call. Okay, Rudy, pull yourself together. I needed to calm down a bit, then I could think. First, was this part of the man-god's plan? Right now, that felt like a stretch. My paranoia tended to run wild wherever he was concerned, but the issue at hand was essentially between me and the Latrius. Far as I knew, it was that simple. It wasn't impossible that he was trying to make me strike against Claire and make an enemy of the Cardinalists, but it seemed too convoluted. Besides, I'd always sided with the Pope. I disagreed with the cardinal position on plenty of things. Perhaps the man-god had pushed things in this direction after seeing a future where I joined forces with the cardinal. But then it would make more sense to pit me against the blessed child or the cardinal or whoever summoned who'd send me on a more clearly adversarial path than Claire. Though Claire would happily act as an in-between for the cardinal, so maybe the idea was to make me her enemy and the cardinalist would naturally follow. But even if that were so, I wouldn't find any evidence to prove it. I was overthinking it. For now, I'd assume the man-god wasn't involved and go from there. It wasn't a good idea to make outright enemies of the whole expulsionist faction at any rate. All right? Kidnapping the blessed child is too much. Let's forget that idea. That made it feel way less necessary to jump straight to extreme measures. I had the Pope backing me up, and even Therese felt warmly about me, judging by today's meeting. If I talked through everything with those two, they might help me. There were other options to try before turning to all-or-nothing strategies. That was my whole reason for going to the church headquarters today. I didn't know what that stubborn old hag wanted, but I doubted she'd immediately push Zenith into the bed of a stranger to clinch things, not in the midst of all this. Besides, after that convoluted kidnapping plot, surely she wouldn't move straight on to such an obvious plan. There are tons of people we can ask for help. Let's begin by approaching as many as we can. The Latrius must have a next move planned, after all. The other two looked relieved. I must have sounded sufficiently rational. Just in case, though, Geese, I want you to poke around for any information on my mother's whereabouts. I know it won't be easy, so you don't have to do it alone. I can pay.
Gotcha, boss.
And me? What should I do?
Perhaps she felt responsible, too. I thought for a moment. Okay, you go search the building used by the mercenary company branch.
Huh? You don't want me to look for Zenith?
I want to set up a contact tablet and an emergency teleportation circle. It'd be good to ask Sir Orsted about the man-god's involvement here, too.
Oh, right, that's true. What about after that?
You back up Geese in searching for Zenith.
Got it.
This would be tough for a demon like Geese if he were alone, but paired with Aisha they'd be a force to be reckoned with. I felt reassured that they could track down anything, no matter how obscure. One more thing, if it looks like my mother is in real danger, I'll act first and consequences be damned. You two should be ready to get away from here if it comes to that.
Okay.
I understand.
Both of them nodded resolutely. Right, I thought. Guess I'm going back to the church headquarters tomorrow. Chapter 2, A Chess Problem. The next day I found myself back in a little room cut off from the outside world, squaring off against the Pope. Next to him sat Cliff. Your Holiness, I hope I find you well. Cliff knew what had gone down last night. I told him everything about how Zenith had been taken, and he was outraged on my behalf at the Latrius's brutish tactics. I need the Pope's help. Now I was on my second audience with His Holiness in as many days. The Pope had to have other things on his plate, but he'd made time for me.
You must be tired, Mr. Rudeus.
Is it that obvious? I touched my face and felt a prickle, even though I'd just shaved. I'd spent all last night replaying my encounter with Claire, too infuriated to sleep. I must have looked awful.
It is. Am I correct in assuming that is why you requested today's audience?
He acted like he saw right through me. Maybe he'd already heard of what happened to Zenith. The truth is, Your Holiness, my mother was abducted last night.
Oh? And by whom?
That phrasing, he knows, I thought. Could it be that the Pope was pulling the strings from behind the curtain? I hoped not. The Latrius. I recounted last night's events. The Pope's eyes narrowed.
And now, you wish for my assistance in your investigations?
That about sums it up. The Pope twirled his Santa Claus beard, considering my words. Then he looked at me. His smile remained, but it didn't reach his eyes.
In that case, I'll need a favor of you.
Your Holiness, Rudeus is my friend. He isn't here as part of a faction squabble, but for his family. Do you really think it's appropriate to negotiate terms for such a matter?
Think carefully, Cliff. This is a Latria family dispute. I can intervene, but that will mean interfering in another family's affairs. I doubt the Latrias will take kindly to the Grimers getting involved. They will, however, hear me out if I come to them in my capacity as Pope. This is all between a mother, her daughter, and her grandson at the end of the day. Also, unless I use that authority, the Grimmers would end up owing the Latrias a hefty debt.
So the Latrius will have baited a minnow and caught a whale. From the whale's point of view, the bargain needs a little extra something to be worthwhile. What would you have me do, Your Holiness?
Oh, you say that easily enough, but this is all feeling a little too good to be true. The Dragon God's right hand comes to me in distress, seeking aid. What possessed the Latrias to go and make an enemy of you in the first place,
I don't know. Isn't it possible the Latrias don't know who the Dragon God is? Now I thought about how Claire had treated Aisha, or how she totally ignored me when we arrived. It seemed obvious that she'd looked down on me from the start. The Dragon God, Orsted. I imagined her saying, I've never heard of any such backwater deity.
However he might appear, Count Latria keeps himself well informed on what's going on in the world. He wouldn't let anything concerning a warrior of your caliber slip through his net, and he certainly wouldn't dismiss it.
Count? Not Claire, then, but her husband, Carlyle. I haven't been introduced to the Count yet. I suspect that Claire, his wife, may be doing this alone. She doesn't know anything. Even if she did know who I was, different people had different views on who counted as important. I wasn't a noble, nor did I hold an important role in any government. I served under this alleged dragon god, but while Claire might have heard of the name, she had no idea who he was beyond that. I had some sort of connection with Ariel, but she didn't know how close those ties were. For all she knew, I was just tossing big names around to make myself sound important. It followed, then, that in Claire's world, I hardly held much standing at all.
Lady Latria has a tendency to put too much weight on titles and blood. It is true. What you say is plausible. Well, why not? No risk, no reward, as they say. In which case, Lord Rudeus, what exactly can you do for me?
What can you do for me? Put another way, he was asking, what are you willing to do for me? He wanted to know how far my loyalty extended. Well, Kidnapping the Blessed Child would be within my power. I'm basically saying I could hit the demon expulsionists where it hurts most.
That's not what I meant. If you kidnap the Blessed Child over this, it could mean the end of the House of Latria. Are you really willing to destroy your own family?
I turned slowly to Cliff. The Latrias, they aren't my family. Cliff looked away, lost for words. The Pope's smile stayed in place. Of course, I only suggested that because it seemed like it might have value to your holiness. I could reduce a whole town to ashes, or clear a forest if that's what it took. I only meant it as a flex, showing what I had up my sleeve, but the Pope stroked his beard again. Does it all sound too good to be true? I wondered. He could easily suspect that someone was setting a trap for him. If he wanted to vet me, that was fine by me. I had nothing to hide. My only agenda was getting Zenith back.
I am against this. Abduction is a crime. The Latrias may be our enemies, but if you talk to them, grandfather, surely you can work things out.
The Pope didn't reply.
And you, Rudeus! How can you sink to their level? This isn't like you... Are you sure this isn't just your anger talking?
My anger? Oh, absolutely. Claire's actions had me seething with rage. I mean, I was furious. It was honestly a miracle I hadn't gone straight to violence. I wouldn't be nearly this angry if Zenith hadn't been involved. I didn't get angry when Eris was injured in the battle with the North Emperor, or when Roxy almost died in the battle with the Death God. Why? Because they'd chosen it themselves. They'd come with me of their own free will, with a full understanding of the risks. If they'd died as a result, I would have been devastated. I'd have honored their choices, full of regret that I'd been too weak to protect them. I could have prevented this. I'd have wept. But right now, Zenith didn't have a choice. She'd neither consented nor refused the invitation in the letter. She was here because of me. And now she might end up married off to a stranger forced to bear his children. If Zenith had been able to choose, if she had decided to come herself, that would be different. If she'd refused and fought back against Claire only to eventually submit, I could still have let it go. Only to the extent that I wouldn't be angry, but still, I think I'd have been consumed by something else. Something different from anger, the kind of despair that made you want to end it all. A grimy, pathetic sense of self-loathing, that sort of powerlessness. That would have been far harder to bear than anger, but I'd still have let it go. This, though, I couldn't let this go. I couldn't stand back and let Zenith be treated like an object because she couldn't say no. Maybe that was why I wanted to inflict that sense of powerlessness on Claire. Maybe what I wanted was to see her hounded and denounced. It's your fault the Blessed Child was kidnapped. Don't try to deny it. I wanted her desperate and utterly defeated. I wanted revenge.
There's still time, Rudeus. Go back and talk to them. I'll even come with you.
Cliff.
Didn't the Latrias do everything they could to help in your search for Zenith? Surely that proves they care about your mother and your sisters. It's still possible this was all a misunderstanding. If you all get together and talk it out, maybe we can get everyone on the same page.
His words tugged at me a bit, but I knew what had happened. Talking's great when talking could fix things. But the old hag wasn't listening. I was pretty far past reconciliation. Our values and attitudes were too different. It felt like trying to reason with someone in a foreign language. How was I supposed to talk things out when we couldn't even understand each other? All the same, I'd clear my head, then think it over again. Maybe you're right. Claire and I had different values, that was all. Maybe with a third party there to mediate, we could reach a solution. It couldn't be the Pope, though, not with his position. If he mediated, he'd only end up owing the Latrias favors. Cliff wasn't ideal either. He was still a nobody in this country. Claire might not be willing to listen to him. There was, however, someone else I could ask. Someone who could get through to Claire and who wouldn't get us tangled up in faction rivalries. Honestly, I should have gone to her first, not the Pope. I'll ask Therese if she can help. My apologies, Your Holiness. Please forget I mentioned all that about kidnapping.
Consider it done. Even among the Temple Knights, Therese is a woman of integrity. I'm sure she will be only too happy to assist you.
I nodded, and Cliff heaved a sigh of relief. I decided to work on Therese starting the next day. There was just one small problem. Therese was the captain of the Blessed Child's guards. In the ranks of the Temple Knights, she was a captain in the Shield Company. She spent every day living alongside the Blessed Child, always there to protect her. What did the Blessed Child do? Not a thing. Like the Pope and the others, she was confined to the inner sanctum of the church headquarters. Apparently, she used to get out and about a fair bit, but after a few incidents, including an assassination attempt that nearly succeeded, she hadn't been outside except on church business in a long time. In addition to the large number of temple knights and mages specializing in divine and barrier magic stationed at the church headquarters, there were also around 10 guards who were exclusively dedicated to the Blessed Child's protection. The inner sanctum was one of the most secure locations you could imagine. Therese was always with the Blessed Child, so getting in to see her wasn't going to be easy. Letters wouldn't reach her, and even if I went and asked for her directly, she wouldn't come out to see me. It almost made me wish I'd gotten the Pope to help me instead. It wasn't impossible, though. This was just based on what the Pope told me. But it sounded like the Blessed Child didn't spend every second of every day shut up in her room. Every few days, she was briefly allowed out into the church's inner garden, her yard time, so to speak. She went out into the garden, which was open to the general congregation, looked at the flowers and the trees, chatted with her guards, and spoke with the occasional ordinary visitor. Living as she did in her tiny cloistered world, these short outings were all the Blessed Child had to look forward to. Those outings were my chance to see Therese. I couldn't openly loiter around waiting for her, though. That would arouse unnecessary suspicion. The Blessed Child was a VIP. It didn't matter if I had business with Therese. If I looked like I was targeting her, I'd end up with the temple knights at my neck. That's why I decided to go to the church gardens pretty much every day. I walked into the church like I belonged there, presenting myself as Cliff's bodyguard before heading to the gardens. I came up with the excuse that I'd taken an interest in the Sarak trees. I even took some canvas in so I could sketch them. The sketch wouldn't take a single day, so it gave me a good cover for my always being in the garden. In the meantime, Geese and Aisha were moving everything else along. Aisha sped around the city like a bullet train hunting for a building to house the mercenary band. Meanwhile, Geese used his contacts to keep watch on the Latria servants. No leads, of course. The three of us carried on like this until the Blessed Child's day off came around.
Oh, Sir Rudeus, you're back again today. Now you must tell me about Lady Iris, just as you promised.
She cried as soon as she saw me, running over. I obliged her, recounting what was new with Eris. There were a lot of good stories, and the Blessed Child listened enthusiastically. Her guards kept a wary eye on me. Their job was to keep suspicious persons away from the Blessed Child, to make sure no vermin came sniffing around her. But me? I'm not suspicious. No, everyone knew that I was a friend of Cliff's and related to Captain Therese. After I was done talking to the Blessed Child, I went and raised my concerns with Therese.
That.
Apparently she'd heard about Zenith's abduction, too. She took the matter seriously right away.
I can hardly believe Mother would do something so barbaric. Look, I have a day off soon. I'll go talk to my mother as well. Don't worry. Zenith won't be married off to some strange man in the meantime. I'm sure of it.
She put her hand to her breasts. They were just as big as Zenith's, as she made this vow. I felt like I could trust her.
The only thing is, Mother was dead set against me becoming a knight, so she may not listen to me.
So, what do we do if she doesn't?
There are strings I can't pull if it comes to that. I'll talk to Father or my older brother. Just leave it to me.
I really felt like I could trust her. Days passed. Still no sign of Zenith. Geese told me that none of the servants were acting suspiciously. No secret meetings outside the Latria estate, nor any outsiders coming in and out of the house. Obviously, there was no sign of anyone who looked like Zenith going in or out either. Geese figured that meant Zenith was probably inside the house. Aisha had successfully set up the new mercenary band office. The building was a former tavern in a corner of the merchant district. Now she was in the process of stocking up on preserved food and clothing. I set up a contact stone in the basement along with an emergency teleportation circle. The emergency teleportation circle was hooked up to a scroll I kept on me that ran off of magic crystals. It could only be used once. I hoped I wouldn't need it. Right off the bat, I used the contact tablet to call Orsted and ask his advice. And now we're here.
All right, then.
He proceeded to give me some new information, along with his predictions for the man-god's next moves. First, he told me about the Blessed Child. The Blessed Child. She had no other name, having forfeited it when she was taken in by the church. From that day on, although everyone bowed down to her in public, in reality she became a tool. The Blessed Child possessed an ability called memory skimming. When she looked into a person's eyes, she could see their memories. Her job was to carry out inquisitions. She was summoned for both internal church investigations and public court cases to read the suspect's memories. A word from the Blessed Child was enough to condemn you, even if you were a noble or a bishop who'd pulled off the perfect crime. The ultimate lie detector, the King of Millis himself attested to her powers. She was the entire reason that the Cardinal's faction was on the ascendant, while the Pope's faction declined. But memories? She can see memories, only see them. A small part of me wondered, what if the Blessed Child could get Zenith's memories back? Orsted said it was probably impossible given the Blessed Child's powers only extended to seeing. But even so, if the opportunity arose, I was going to have her try. Unfortunately, non-believers couldn't pop in and borrow the Blessed Child whenever they felt like it. The Church, which in reality meant the Cardinal, kept tight control on the use of her powers. You had to get his permission, not just outsiders. Everyone, even the royal family or the Pope. The Blessed Child was off limits. I might have gotten her to like me a bit, but that didn't mean I could just ask her to swing on by the Latria boat and expose their lies for me. The other thing about the almighty Blessed Child was that her destiny was extremely fragile. There weren't any time loops where she made it to 30, and more often than not, she died around the age of 10. Orsted said that, given her destiny and her powers, the chances that she was a disciple of the man-god were practically non-existent. Next up was the House of Latria. There were currently 4 Latrias who were of age, not including Zenith. The head of the house, Count Carlisle Latria. His wife, Countess Claire Latria. Their eldest son, Temple Knight Edgar Latria. Their 4th eldest daughter, Temple Knight Therese Latria. Their eldest daughter, Anise Latria, had married the Marquis of Berkrant, whose estate was in a town around a day's journey to the west of Militian, so she wasn't in the city. The same was true of the eldest son, Edgar. He was a junior captain in the Temple Knights, and he was stationed in the same town as Anise. Their father, Carlisle, was a Temple Knights senior commander. His role kept him extremely busy, and while on duty, he almost always stayed at the barracks. He came home perhaps one day in every 10. As I'd concluded from my prior investigation, Therese, as captain of the Blessed Child's Guard, stayed at the church. She essentially lived there even when she wasn't on duty. This meant that, practically speaking, Claire was the absolute mistress of that manor. I asked Orsted about Claire too. Claire Latria was the eldest daughter of the Latria family. Fiercely stubborn from the day she was born, she was raised to be hard on herself and those around her. She never ever backed down once she made a decision, and apparently would be that way till the day she died. Carlisle had married into her family. They had 1 son and 4 daughters. To the best of Orsted's knowledge, she was an unremarkable noblewoman who would never do anything particularly noteworthy and would pass from the world and leave it tidily, as if she'd never been here. She valued fairness and detested crime. Orsted said she wasn't the type to go around kidnapping people. Orsted also gave me a detailed rundown on the internal power struggles of the Millis Church. As I already knew, the church was divided between the Pope faction and the Cardinal faction. The schism between the two occurred around 300 years ago. Until the schism, the Millis Church had followed the word of Scripture, where it was written that all demons shall be destroyed, and expelled all demon folk. This was the church's stance until one priest's attention fell on the line, all races are equal under Millis, and argued that should demons then not also be equal, thus triggering the schism. The struggle for power between the demon expulsion faction and the demon integration faction had gone on ever since. This is how things stood now. The Pope's Cliff's grandfather's faction supported demon integration. Currently, this faction was the largest. The majority of the common folk of Millis and the missionary knights belonged to this faction, commonly known as the Pope's faction, the integration faction, etc. The Cardinal faction supported demon expulsion. They controlled the Blessed Child. The Temple Knights and most of the older noble families like the Latrias were in this faction. commonly known as the Cardinals faction, the Blessed Child faction, the Demon Expulsionists, etc. The royal family and the Cathedral Knights were neutral. Around 40 or 50 years ago, back when the Expulsionists were winning, other races in Millis faced severe prejudice, and there had been a lot of fighting with the Great Forest. In the end, though, the Integrationists had put an end to a relatively severe bout of fighting with the demon folk. Their influence had grown, and a cardinal who favored integration had snatched the Pope's throne. After that, the Integration faction had the power to act however it pleased. But then the Blessed Child had been born and the Expulsionists had rallied around her. An Expulsionist archbishop was elevated to cardinal, and the balance began to tip back in the Expulsionists' favor. That's how we arrived here. Finally, the man-god's interference. Orsted said that there was no one of particular importance currently in Millis. With Millis being the country it was, when Laplace began his war, it would never side with the demon folk regardless of who was in charge. That meant all of these political machinations were a wash to both Orsted and the man-god. Of course, my ideal outcome would have Cliff on the Pope's throne. It was possible that the man-god was orchestrating something to prevent that from happening. But if so, he had a weird way of going about it. Kidnapping Zenith was totally unrelated. No, I didn't have to worry about the man-god here.
When in doubt, kill. Your enemy's intentions will die with them.
I felt like I might actually do that. That was everything from Orsted for now. I probably ought to have gotten up to speed on all that beforehand. That said, the decision to come to Millis had been a sudden one, and my plan was to just call in, say hello, and leave. I'd been a bit overly optimistic. When the time came to go to the King Dragon realm, I'd be more prepared. A few more days passed, then Therese came back to me with good news.
She didn't say it outright, but Mother more or less admitted that she's got Zenith.
No way! Therese had used one of her rare days off to go and see Claire on my behalf. She'd needled her mother with questions until she managed to get an indirect admission that Claire had ordered a servant to deceive Geese and abduct Zenith, and that she was now holding Zenith captive somewhere.
There's something off about her, though. Like she's hiding something, or feeling conflicted. I'm sure she doesn't seriously intend to marry my sister off. But even so...
What about Zenith's location?
I'm sorry, but I couldn't pry it out of her,
said Therese, her face clouding over. Her attempts to get the location out of Claire had failed. She'd then tried to persuade her mother to return Zenith to me. I don't know what you've done with Zenith, but surely you're taking on too much, trying to find a partner for a widow who's lost her mind. You probably haven't realized how amazing Rudeus is, but this is a guy who can just pop in and see the Pope. You really ought to treat him with more respect. If he says he'll look after her for as long as he's alive, why not just let him? But Claire had remained equivocal and refused to give any clear answer.
In the end, she started asking when I was going to get married. I'm sorry. Whenever that subject comes up, we always end up fighting.
Geese told me that as far as he could tell, nothing had been set in motion since the abduction. Therese said it seemed like Claire was hiding something, or maybe she was conflicted. Orsted himself said kidnapping was way out of character. Something was definitely up with Claire. Even if there was, though, so what about her motives? It wasn't like she ever spared a thought for me and my feelings. She acted like I might as well not exist.
But hey, the House of Latria can't even find me a husband. There's no way Claire will find someone to marry Zenith just like that.
What? Oh, yeah, you're right, definitely. I didn't really see what her prospects had to do with Zenith's, but hey, if she said so.
Mother is just being stubborn. We'll attack her from all sides next time. I've talked to Father and asked my brother and sister to come. You wouldn't think so, but Mother always takes my father's words to heart. If he and my brother both talk to her, I know she'll listen.
You've thought of everything. Thank you.
Don't thank me. My mother started all this.
Therese had done a fantastic job, so much so that I had to wonder what on earth had motivated this level of devotion. I'd only even met her once, maybe twice before.
If you do want to thank me, though, you could introduce me to a few Asuran knights, maybe some nobles from there.
Terese. Are you finished?
Just as our conversation was wrapping up, the Blessed Child came over. Teresa's demeanor changed in an instant.
Forgive me, I should not be discussing my personal business while on duty.
Think nothing of it. This is for Lady Arisa's husband, after all. I owe her a debt of gratitude, and St. Millis is always watching.
Ah, now it made sense. Therese wasn't helping me for my sake alone, but for Eris too. This might actually be the first time anyone had thanked me for something Eris had been involved in. Right, once the kids were a little older, I'd bring Eris here.
Blessed child, it's almost time.
Let us escort you back to your room.
Master Rudeus, keep up the good work.
The Itaku Knight's attitude toward me had softened too lately. When I first showed up, my connections to the Pope's faction had gotten all the guards' hackles up, but they didn't get up in my face much these days. They would always be wary, but they seemed to have decided that I was a neutral party. Safe. I mean, after the effort I put in, they'd better think that. I'd gone out of my way to be a total beta male, refusing to speak in an off-puttingly formal fashion, due to her status, and always making her smile with amusing stories. Spending time with me always put the Blessed Child in a good mood, and I heard she looked forward to my visits even after she was returned to her rooms. I'd worked hard to make that happen. Couldn't hurt that Therese, the captain of her guard, treated me so cordially either. When the captain herself let her guard down around me, suspicion began to feel stupid and overcautious. Honestly, they should probably be more suspicious. I could have snatched the Blessed Child anytime I felt like it. Not that I would. Although, if Teresa's efforts at persuasion went nowhere, and I didn't get Zenith back if I was truly backed into a corner and had no other options left, yeah, then I'd do it. When push came to shove, I'd always put Zenith first. If I didn't, I couldn't face my dead father or Lilia, who was taking care of a pregnant Sylphie while I was away. That was why I made sure never to meet the Blessed Child's eyes. I knew she could see memories, but not how deep that sight went. Who knows, it might not even extend deep enough to see I was seriously considering grabbing her. But then again, it might. The guaranteed safe option was to make sure I never made eye contact with her. I was pretty sure none of her guards had noticed. Even if some of them had, from what I heard, everyone tried to avoid the Blessed Child's eyes, even within the church. I guess no one liked the idea of someone peeking at their memories. My doing the same wouldn't strike anyone as suspicious. Abducting her would be easy. All I had to do was place a teleportation circle scroll under the chair where the Blessed Child always sat. When the time came, I'd distract the guards, then activate the scroll to teleport her away. After she disappeared right in front of me, I'd definitely be a suspect. But there'd be no evidence. The ink of the magic circle would vanish, leaving only paper. It wouldn't occur to most people to suspect teleportation. The teleportation circle would be connected to the mercenary office, which was stocked with food and clothes when we got the band up and running. I'd have Aisha stand guard over the Blessed Child there while I opened negotiations. I didn't want to use that plan if I could help it, though. I'd feel bad doing that to Therese. She was on my side. She was angry that Claire had been so brutal, and she'd gone as far as to call her siblings back to Milishon from pretty far away. I didn't know how Carlyle, who had to be nearby, felt about all this. But Therese herself was making a genuine effort to make Claire change her mind. If the Blessed Child were kidnapped, that would be her failure. Therese, if it's not too much of a strain on your time, I'd be very grateful if you'd introduce me to Lord Carlyle and my uncle and aunt as well. I really ought to meet them, and I want to personally request their assistance.
Oh, of course.
But if that's what it took, if I had to, I'd be ready. If disgracing myself would allow me to keep my promise to Paul and Lilia, I'd do it. But I'd give Therese her shot. If it looked like her efforts weren't going anywhere, maybe I'd give them a shot and grab the Blessed Child after facing the guards in a fair fight. No sneaky tricks. The total opposite of the plan I'd prepped.
I wish Mother would put her efforts into finding me someone instead, when Zenith already has a Gourvet guy to take care of her.
She left grumbling to herself. I bowed my head to her once more, thinking, you don't want a guy like me. Another few days passed. It was morning. It had been, 14? maybe 15 days since I arrived in this country. After Aisha finished setting up the mercenary office and started helping with Geese's investigation, the two of them brought me some new information. Yesterday, a tailor shop worker had visited the Latria estate. Aisha paid someone to bring her the tailor, who in turn revealed that they'd been called in to take a woman's measurements for a bridal gown. The woman was getting on a bit in years for a bride, and her eyes were empty. That was Zenith, beyond a doubt. More news: Claire's butler had met a few times with someone from the church in secret. The only natural conclusion was that Claire was picking out a husband for Zenith, and if that was the case, we were running out of time. It wasn't time to panic yet. After receiving Therese's message, the Latria's eldest son and daughter were on their way. They had sent a letter, Therese told me, in which they said, to marry off a daughter who cannot even speak for herself is surely impermissible. It was nice to know that my aunt and uncle were decent folks. I still hadn't laid eyes on Lord Carlisle. He was probably busy with his duties as a military commander. Therese reassured me, though, saying that father would never condone what Claire has done impermissible. It was nice to accelerate. Aisha had fond memories of the head of the House of Latria as well. She told me he was always kind to me. What he'd have to say about the business with Zenith I had no idea, but I wanted to talk to him soon. Claire couldn't keep this up if her husband and whole family were against her. She might be in charge of the estate, but she wasn't the head of the house. It didn't matter what she had planned, I had her in check. I couldn't thank Therese enough for how she'd flown into action to help me. Even if things went wrong, now I knew where Zenith was, and had an idea of how well equipped Claire was to fight me. If I contacted Therese beforehand, I was pretty sure she'd get me the building layout and tell me where she thought the guards would be too. If Carlisle took my side, though, there'd be no need for violence. I'd strong-arm my way to Zenith, give Claire a piece of my mind, and that'd be the end of it. Man, what a relief. It really looked like I could wrap this up without it metastasizing beyond myself and the Latrias. That meant I avoided making problems for Cliff, and I got to build my relationships with the other Latrias. There'd been a few unexpected twists along the way, but everything looked like it would work out. It was a good thing I didn't do anything stupid. Reaching out to the people around me and using them to build bridges was the right call. There'd never been any need to kidnap the Blessed Child. Yep, I hadn't been thinking straight. I only had that crazy idea because I'd wanted a quick solution. But in the end, slow and steady always wins the race. I mean, look at the progress we'd made. Every piece was on the board and I could see a checkmate in just a few more moves. Maybe I wouldn't be able to get even, but I could let that go if I had Mother back. Those were the thoughts that ran through my mind as I made my way once again to the garden at the church headquarters. Over the past 2 weeks or so, the Sarek trees had lost their flowers, but in my painting they were still in full bloom. My painting's trees sent an eternal spray of pink petals fluttering through the air. It was almost finished. It sucked pretty hard. When I started working on it, the Blessed Child's fan brigade had a great time mocking me about it. The moment I added the Blessed Child in her white dress, though, they changed their tune. Suddenly, it was a heartbreaking work of staggering genius. These guys weren't hard to read, you get me? The Blessed Child even asked me to give her the painting when it was finished. I told her that, while I was no artist, if she wanted it, it was hers. I was going to secretly make a figure to give her along with it. It occurred to me that I didn't need to stamp out the influence of the demon expulsionists and strengthen the voice of the papalist faction if I could just get the Blessed Child to declare from on high, I give permission for the sale of figures. We should be good to go. I wouldn't start selling demon figures right away. We'd introduce new models one by one, then down the line add a demon as part of a series. Okay, forget it. The Blessed Child probably didn't even have that kind of authority. Wait! As I reached the entrance to the garden, something felt off. There was someone here. They're here already? Every time up till now, a few guards came out to patrol after I arrived, and then the Blessed Child came out. At this time of day, I should have been the only one here. Maybe the patrol had started already, or maybe it was someone else. I stepped out into the garden. There was no one there. The aura I'd felt was probably just my imagination. I mean, it wasn't like I had laser point eyes like Rudeus. Huh? I noticed one item I didn't recognize. On top of my easel, there was a lit candle, just the one, all by itself. The flame shivered in the sunlight. When I approached, I saw footprints on the ground. One set, They led away under the sarak trees. Was someone hiding back there, behind the tree trunks? Therese? No answer. Oh, wow, that's weird. As I called out, I opened my eye of foresight. Who's there? I tried again, putting a bit more force into my voice. Meanwhile, I activated my magic armor. I was ready for battle. I approached the sarak trees, staying alert to any movement around me. I didn't need them to come out. I'd keep my distance, then hit them with magic in their blind spot. The blessed child liked that tree, so I'd better be careful not to damage it. Wind magic would do the trick. Whoever strikes first wins. What the? The magic in my hand dispersed. By the time I managed to think, that's weird, it was already too late. I tried to step back and came straight into contact with a wall. I turned, but there was nothing there. No, the wall was there, but invisible. I looked down at my feet. There, shining faintly blue in the morning light, was a magic circle. Barrier magic. I'd seen this barrier magic before. If I tried to step out of the magic circle, I'd be blocked by an invisible wall, and any magic I tried to use while inside would be dispelled. I'd seen this before.
It's a king tier barrière, Rudeus,
said a voice from behind the tree. A figure walked slowly out of the shadows. A woman, clad in blue plate armor. Her face, had it not been hidden under that blocky helmet, would have looked just like Zenith's. And she hadn't come alone. Men in armor urged, one from behind a tree, another from out of a cluster of bushes. It was the otaku, always hanging around their princess, otherwise known as the Temple Knights. I mean, I was pretty sure it was, but they were all wearing weird helmets, so it was, but they were as...
I'm sorry, but I got a tip-off that you're planning to kidnap the blessed child.
I stared at her. I didn't know what to say. The knights spread out to stand in a circle around the barrier. Therese, the only one out in the open, faced me directly.
You are accused of heresy. Your inquisition begins. Now.
As one, the helmeted men drew their swords and beat them on the ground. An odd grating clang rang through the garden. Chapter 3, Flip the Board and Take the King. Oh, hi, Rudeus Greyrat here. You might be wondering how this happened. There I was, surrounded. 8 upstanding knights, all in gleaming blue armor on all sides. But before we get to that, let's get to know our contestants. First off, the one right in front of me was Therese Latria. That's right, my aunt, and a member of the House of Latria. She's a bit of an odd one out amongst the expulsionist temple knights. She accepted me, even with all my demon friends, but it went further than that. She didn't really seem to care much at all about race or blood. She was usually pretty laid back around me, but this time, well, she was wearing a helmet, so who's to say? Let's go around clockwise. Next up was the knight on her left. He wore a helmet shaped like a skull, and there was a scratch on his armor near his heart. I remembered that mark. I didn't know his real name, but this had to be the knight known as Skull Ash. Given the skull helmet, pretty good guess. The guy next to him wore a helmet shaped like the trash cans on Millis Street corners. He was the only one of the 8 wearing a red cape. The blessed child really liked that cape. She was always wiping her grimy little hands on it. He had the truly unfortunate appellation Dustbin. Next, a helmet with a flat faceplate, engraved all over with the phrase, "May you rest in peace." This guy was over 2 meters tall. He lifted the blessed child up onto his shoulders so that she could pick fruit from the trees. She called him Gravekeeper. The 4th man's helmet looked like he'd stuck a broomstick on his head. His armor didn't have any particular identifying marks. Okay, brooms cleaning. Trash sweeper. There were 3 more, but to be honest, I couldn't tell them apart. They all had names to do with death or graves or whatever, and got all swelled up with pride every time the blessed child called on them, but as for personal identities, names, they were all cringy age-lord code names. I remembered that much. That's right. Black coffin, burial shroud, and funeral procession. Pretty sure that was it. Now what was the whole team called? Wait, it'll come to me.
Let the inquisition begin. I am Therese Latria, captain of the Keepers of Anastasia, and I shall serve as Inquisitor.
The other 7 knights around me shouted their assent, beating their swords on the ground again. Right, Keepers of Anastasia, that was it. Therese had told me once before.
I shall now commence the interrogation of the accused. Any objection?
No objections.
Objection. I move that he be executed on the spot.
No objections. No objections. No objections. No objections. No.
An objections are overruled.
Ah, poor Whittle Dusty's all disappointed. But I mean, when everyone else is like, let's find out more first, and you're like, nah, let's just do it, you're gonna get overruled. I'll remember that though, buddy. Don't you worry. Mushoku Tensei Volume 21 by Rifujin Namaganate, cast by Artel Studio. If you are interested in creating your own audio drama like this, please visit artel.ai and use promotion code Artel to activate your account. Now, enjoy the story.
Rudeus Greyrat stands accused.
Wait. I'm not following this. Can someone catch me up on what happened last time? Gotcha! It's recap time. Our hero Rudeus, trying to rescue his mother Zenith, went and hung out around the Blessed Child and the captain of her guard, Therese. Then one day, he went to the church headquarters to see Therese, only to find himself trapped inside a king-tier barrier. His captors told him he stood accused of heresy for plotting to kidnap the Blessed Child. And now I'm all caught up. Don't I feel better? Okay, I admit I had at one time thought about doing some light kidnapping, but I ditched that plan. Instead, I got Therese on my side and had her negotiate Zenith's return for me. There had to be some mistake. Either that, or someone was spreading false information. I'd kept that kidnapping plan close to the vest. Aisha, Geese, Cliff, and the Pope. The Pope was the most suspicious one on that list, though it was also possible Geese had been captured, and they tortured it out of him. I hoped Aisha was okay.
The Inquisition shall now begin. Answer truthfully, Rudeus.
Got it. I didn't understand one bit of what was going on. When that happened, the most important thing to do was to stay calm. If I flew off the handle now, everything I'd worked for so far would be for nothing.
Rudeus Greyrat. Do you admit that you ended on Misedavia? That demons are evil to lead the hearts of believers astray?
So they'd done their homework, but then the Pope knew about that, so it was probably in their database. I do not.
Puis answer truthfully. We have evidence.
I didn't hand out anything. I made sure everyone paid me.
Was the price you asked not remarkably low for a book?
Damn right it was. I wanted to get that book in the hands of as many people as possible. As you're well aware, Therese, The
accused shall not speak except to answer the Inquisitor's questions.
Don't be like that. Ask me why I was sucking up to Rudeus, I thought. But Therese was asking questions she knew the answer to. I told her about it before.
Rudeus Greyrat, you worship the demons and hold them up as gods, do you not?
I was silent for a moment. Okay, this one I can definitely deny. No, I don't believe in gods.
Liar! The accused is lying. Lies. All lies. Liar! I judge the accused to be lying. Yeah, lies.
The majority has decided that you are lying.
Majority rule, huh? How very democratic of them. All right. I guess that's how inquisitions work.
This is the final question. Rudeus Greyrat, do you admit that you plotted to kidnap the Blessed Child, the symbol of the Holy Millis Church?
I do not. I did make a bad joke along those lines once, but I never plotted anything. Not that it was a joke when I first blurted it out, but I never acted on it. In the end, it might as well have been a joke.
Liar! The accused is lying.
Lies.
Liar! I judge the accused to be lying. Yeah, lies.
Oh, good. I was starting to find the whole thing kind of funny. I wanted to do an inquisition where no one was allowed to laugh. You replied to basic questions with obvious lies, and whoever laughed first got slimed. That was really the last question, huh?
The majority has decided that you are lying. Des filles tututori de Madit.
The other 7 knights beat their swords on the ground again. It was pretty intimidating. If I hadn't spent the past month looking at what lay behind those helmets, I might have been freaked out.
This Inquisition finds Rudeus Greyrat guilty of heresy.
No objection. No objection. No objection.
Objection! I can't be here chin-wagging with you fellows when there's rice to be reaping. Hold it, take that!
No objection. No objection. No objection. No objection.
Piping up in the middle got me a good glare. Sorry, it was your turn, wasn't it?
This concludes the Inquisition. I sentence the defendant to full disarmament.
What's that? Some kind of death penalty?
No, we won't kill you. Your arms will be cut off. Then, to assure you never wield magic ever again, they will be wrapped in a cloth woven through with barrier magic. Then sealed up with earth magic.
Ha! She actually answered. Not sure how you're going to make that happen, though, when neither of us can get at the other right now. They had sealed me in. They probably had all kinds of stuff prepared for when the barrier came down and the fight started. Disarmament, though, really? They were going to chop off my arms, seal them in a barrier, then encase them in concrete as well, so I could never use them again. No more magic, no more swords, no more arms, hence the name. No more fondling breasts for me, either. I'd have to go back to a prosthesis. The Zalif prosthesis had decent sensory input, but they were less than ideal for the partner on the receiving end. As you might imagine, hands are no good unless they're warm and soft. Therese, you'd take away my joy in life?
Murder is your joy in life?
Is that what she thinks of me? That if I both hands free, I'll go off killing people? It was actually the opposite. I liked making people. What? No. I meant, without my hands, how am I supposed to hold my wife?
Excuse me.
I want to, hold my wife again. After being forced to repeat the same mortifying statement twice, all I got for it was an impatient click of the tongue from Therese. Rude. Well, whatever. I wasn't keen to get into a hold your wife. What do you mean? Let me show you tilde Aerodusion type scene. No matter what happens, you guys don't plan on letting me go, do you?
That is correct.
So that joke of a trial wasn't just you messing around, it was the real deal?
That is correct.
The Blessed Child would be able to confirm my innocence if you called her. Doesn't the Blessed Child usually attend inquisitions?
Provided Alice Seven are present. The Temple Knights have the authority to pass judgment heretics in basic inquisition.
So you're not going to call the Blessed Child for me?
That is correct.
I couldn't see her face behind her helmet, but her voice shook slightly. So she wasn't doing this because she wanted to. She was an unwilling participant. Was everything kind you did for me up till now just an act to get me here?
Of course not. The Blessed Child and I were very fond of you. You are the one who betrayed us, Rudeus.
I didn't betray anyone. I came to you because I trusted you, Therese. I came here wishing only to befriend your beloved Blessed Child. No one replied. I guess they weren't interested in what I had to say. Man, this really sucks. I'd really tried to put everything out in the open this time. I'd controlled my impatience, kept all my desires in check, and opted for the slow but sure path to securing Zenith's return. And yet, here I was. Therese, what's going to happen to Zenith?
I'll make sure that Mother is persuaded. The matter at hand has no bearing on any of that.
That answer, after that tremor in her voice earlier, Therese definitely isn't calling all the shots here. Is it the Pope who's behind this, or the Cardinal? That's the downside of being a servant of the Church, huh? I know I'm not of the Millis faith, and I do have ties to the Pope, but you all knew that from the beginning, didn't you? Why now?
Are you done asking questions?
Her voice was cold. She wasn't going to answer me. I guess this was never supposed to be a back and forth. One last question. The tip-off you received wasn't from a god that came into your dreams with a message, was it?
No. Atrocit source pastiton to me. The Temple Knights would never give credence to the words of an unknown entity like that.
Even if the god in your dream claimed to be St. Millis. No sooner had I spoken than the knights around me erupted in protest.
St. Millis would never send such messages. God would never do such a thing. His words are not for our unworthy ears at any rate. Exactly. St. Millis would never appear to one other than the blessed child. Mill Boys is the one true God. Only a demon would use God's name falsely.
Well spoken. I love you. Our faith is absolute. Rudeus.
Well, that is a relief. I wouldn't find any disciples of the man-god amongst this merry band of fanatics. They were all devout followers of Millis. That was all I needed to know to put my mind at ease. I spread my arms out, letting my robe fall to the ground. It made a pretty sick swooshing sound, if I do say so myself. On my left hand I had the gear I kept on me for these moments. Arm. Absorb. The stone of absorption activated, and the barrier at my feet vanished. The Temple Knight's eyes went wide. All right, let's see what you've got.
All units spread out.
The other Temple Knights sprang away to put distance between us. In response, I sidestepped, creating stone cannons in both my hands as I did so. They were pretty fast, and they hit hard enough for a direct hit in the right place to be fatal. I fired. Who was my first target? Dustbin, I choose you.
Support.
The two knights standing beside Dust dived out in front to deflect my two stone cannons. They both carried shields that looked like semi-transparent membranes beginner-tier magic shields. Wait, beginner? My stone cannon really got stopped by novice magic?
Dust, Grave, and Skull flank from the right. Trash, coffin, barrier left. Funeral, attack at will with me.
3 coordinated magical strikes came at me from both sides. Fire, water, earth. 3 different magic disciplines at the same time. That wouldn't help them, though. Arm, absorb! The stone of absorption disintegrated their magic, as I fired off another stone cannon back at them. It was deflected again, this time by the jerk with the magic shield who hadn't joined in the attack.
Let this smoldering flame burn bright with your blessing, flamethrower. Majestic blade of ice, I summon thee to strike my enemy down. Icicle blade!
Magic assailed me from both sides at once, fire and water. Wait, that one had his hand on the ground. There were 3 types. It was an earth lance. Arm, absorb. The fire and water disintegrated, while the earth lance was overwritten by Quagmire at its origin point, rendering it useless. Crap, I was too slow to get a counter off. I could move, though. I quickly stepped back to dodge out of the way of the magical attacks. One kind of magic, fire. From the size, maybe fireball? Why was it just the one? There were 3 guys over there. Why not 3 attacks? There was no time to think much about it. I pointed one arm at the left group and the other at the right and shout, bed, taket. Stone cannon. Stepping back meant I had a good view of the situation. The Temple Knights had split into groups, with 3 on the right and 3 on the left. 2 members of each group held a semi-transparent shield. They jumped out in front of my stone cannons and blocked them. I'd made the cannons harder and faster this time, but they still bounced off the shields like they were nothing. I'd seen this before, water god style. Impressive that it even worked with magic shields.
Unknown God, answer my call and raise the earth up toward the heavens. Earth lance. The spirits of the magnificent waters, I beseech the Prince of Thunder. With your majestic blade of ice, slay my enemy. Icicle blast.
The 2 without shields sent magic at me, one slightly slower than the other. I could obviously counter both, but it wouldn't get me anywhere. Right, what's the plan? 3 enemies. On my right, 3 on my left. 2 in each group were using barrier magic to block my attacks. I could only make 2 magical attacks at once, so they only needed 2 shields. When a magical attack came their way, the 3rd member responded with magic of their own. As soon as the other team realized they weren't targets, they dropped their shields. Then, with my defenses left wide open, all three of them attacked at once. They probably used 3 magic disciplines because they knew I could only use 2. Too bad their information hadn't accounted for the fact that I could neutralize all of their attacks simultaneously. The reason they'd only attacked from one side at the start was a mere matter of distance, I bet. If I'd been nearer, they could have engaged me at close range, then struck whenever I began an incantation. Each group had a member without a shield. I assumed they were in charge of close-range combat. So long as I was in the safe zone, however, they wouldn't move. They really thought this through. Okay, how do you like this? Fireball! I shouted, making sure they all heard it as I summoned my magic. I created 2 burning orbs, each 2 meters across. Their size and temperature were advanced level, but they were slower than the stone cannons. So slow it'd look like an Ipa's pitch. High arc, very slow speed. I released 1 at each group.
Support!
Came the call, and the shield-bearing knights moved out in front. But Magic Shield had a weak point. Disturb magic! I called. The spell wiped out the shields of both the knights on the left. Almost all barrier magic eats up magical energy so long as it stays active. Even a beginner-tier magic barrier. What that meant here was that disturb magic still worked. Even though the incantation was finished, the group on the right would block it, but hey, divide and conquer. That was my thought until the instant before something came hurtling at me from behind. I whirled around with my right hand raised to block it. There was a loud thud, and something exploded into dust in front of me. A brown boulder, reduced to fragments that now flew past my face. I could still feel the force of the impact in my elbow. That was a stone cannon. I think it was the first time I'd had it used against me.
Rudeus can cast a different spell with each hand. So long as 2 of you counter him and 1 attacks, will be fine. Every one of you stand your ground.
She had snuck up behind me along with 1 other knight, the one who'd cast the spell. I was totally surrounded. Had moving back at the start been a mistake? No, I had to assume they had a plan for close range too. The armor of the knights I'd hit with fireball was smoking a bit, but they were otherwise unharmed.
Rudeus, the officers are the strongest of all the temple knights. You can't win.
You think so, do you?
I do. Over the past 10 days, we took the liberty of studying how you fight. You're so famous, it didn't take long to put together a counter-strategy.
Oh? In that case, why don't you have your swords out? I'm weaker at close range. Right now they were evading all my magic. I had plenty of tricks left up my sleeves, of course. It was possible they hadn't braved close combat because they were wary of what I'd do. Given how they'd shut me out, it did look like their strategy was working for them. If they had to resort to a war of attrition, well, it didn't speak highly of their research skills. But they'd gotten behind me. They must have a plan, which meant I had to act quick.
Please, Rudeus, give yourself up. Before you try anything, we know you favor magic and we have a plan to shut you down. I wasn't expecting that device on your left hand, but I know how it works now.
Huh.
The entrance to the garden is sealed with barrier magic. No one's coming to help you.
Huh. Kudos, guys. This plan was pretty perfect. They'd worked out a foolproof strategy to catch me. No heat-of-the-moment counterplan was going to break through that. It was thorough. I wondered if I should try a few different approaches and see if I couldn't break out, but if it got me captured, it'd be absolutely mortifying. I couldn't afford to pull my punches anymore. Quagmire. It was time to get serious. Therese. Rudeus murmured something, and the ground beneath my feet turned to mud. My informant had told me about this spell. This was why they called him Rudeus Greyrat. The swamp the spell created should only have been about the size of a dinner plate. As was to be expected from the quagmire, however, this one was much bigger. Every visible inch of the garden was transformed into a muddy bog. There was a nasty squelching sound as the Blessed Child's treasured Sirach trees, the Balta trees, and the Pires trees all listed sideways. The quagmire wasn't going to hold us back. Trash was already chanting the counterspell. Deep mist, Rudeus murmured. A moment later, everything was obscured by white mist. Oh, crap.
Everyone, on your guard. He wants us stuck in the mud and lost in the mist so he can pick us off one by one.
The next instant, the ground glowed purple, followed by a sharp crack like something splitting apart. My ears rang.
No one panic. The enchantment on your armor makes you immune to electric. This guy is slippery, don't give him any opportunity to escape.
Understood, Captain.
Everything was going to be fine. My informant told me that Rudeus was no good at close range. He did, however, have spells like electric and stone cannon and a number of others we had to watch out for. All his magic was powerful to boot. I didn't want to be on the receiving end of a direct hit. Unfortunately for Rudeus, however, every knight in the Keepers of Anastasia was a warrior priest of the highest caliber. At minimum, they were advanced level with a blade. They were also trained in barrier magic, plus 4 other disciplines at advanced level. Any one of them was a formidable opponent taken alone, but they'd also drilled extensively for subduing lone enemies as a team. My water god style was only intermediate level, but funeral procession waiting beside me was a water saint. Rudeus might be an imperial tier magician, but he wouldn't find it easy to get through the ring we'd drawn around him. My strategy was sound.
We're going to counter the quagmire, Cap.
A moment later, I heard Trash say, "Sand wave." The mud beneath us turned to sand, and I yanked my feet out to avoid being buried in it. Sorry, Rudeus, but sand wave can overwrite quagmire. I bet they didn't teach you that at the academy. Countering combined magic is still an ongoing topic of research. After all, this'll be the first time you've had quagmire cleanly countered, right? Whatever you had planned, it's over. This is checkmate. None of us really believed that you were going to try and kidnap the Blessed Child, of course. You really made her smile. And I know you only came to me because you were genuinely scared for Zenith. Unfortunately, my hands are tied. This was an order from the Cardinal, so truth doesn't come into it. I simply obey. Well, Dust alone did get a bit huffy, saying he knew you were in love with the Blessed Child all along. I argued to spare your life at least, and it worked. The Cardinal generously decreed that as an enemy of Lord Millis, losing your arms would suffice as punishment. That's why we brought no blades or poison. It's going to be okay, Rudeus. You're so young, and yet you already have a beautiful wife. Even without your arms, you'll be able to live your life with Lady Eris's support. I heard you serve the dragon god too. When I was a child, I heard that dragons have mysterious powers, so perhaps they could break our seal and reattach your arms. So long as we don't hear about it, I promise we won't bother you. As for Zenith, I'll make sure that works out. Like I said, this has no bearing on that.
We're going to counter Deep Mist, Captain,
said Funeral, snapping me back to reality. Then, all of a sudden, I got a strange feeling. Something was wrong. But what? Rudeus wasn't doing anything. That was it. After casting Deep Mist, Rudeus hadn't moved an inch. If he'd run or used magic, I would have heard something. In the depths of the mist, where I couldn't even see a meter in front of my face, I didn't hear a thing. Nothing. Not since that first electric. Could he have gotten away? The quagmire and Deep Mist, followed by electric, were the groundwork to keep us from moving. Then he'd used some other magic, and he was already... Wind blast. The wind spell went off, and the mist instantly dispersed. Huh? All of us stared, unable to believe our eyes. When the mist cleared, what we saw standing in the middle of our ring was not Rudeus. The thing, whatever it was, stood on top of a torn scroll. It was big and made of rock. A figurine? A set of armor? An idea suddenly occurred to me and I murmured, "Was that summoning magic?" The next moment the giant suit of armor moved. I went for Dust's gang first. I closed in on them the moment the mist cleared. They were too surprised to react in time. Using my eye of foresight, I read the positions of their shields and where they'd move while firing off 1, 2, 3 shots. I think they tried to defend themselves, but all my shots blasted straight through. I held back, obviously. I only knocked them out. They were alive. Probably. Without waiting for them to hit the ground, I went into Gatling mode. I spun around to my right, my arms spinning around with me. There was a buzzing like angry bees as a line of stone cannons strafed out. The knight's legs snapped like twigs, armored leg guards and all. They were still attached, though, and I hadn't hit any vital spots, so hey, probably not dead. If they got up, I'd be in trouble, so I shot each one in the head with a stone cannon to knock them out. 2 to go. I turned, using the footwork Orsted taught me that allowed me to close in on would-be attackers from behind while maintaining the ability to dodge. It didn't seem like anyone was attacking me just then, but better safe than sorry. I stopped in front of Therese. She stared at me in blank shock. Another knight tried to draw his sword to defend her. Too slow, buddy. Way too slow. Eris could have cut him to pieces 10 times over in that time. In the version 1, I could deal with that. My fist whammed into him before he'd drawn the blade out of the scabbard. This last dude didn't have time to speak before I sent him flying. He crashed into the wall of the church and passed out. Therese stood there looking dazed throughout all of it. I couldn't see her face through the helmet, but I recognized that body language. People panic and freeze up like that when they can't process what's happening anymore.
Samo, what a...
I knocked her out. As a gesture of respect for everything she'd done for me, I did it with a stone cannon rather than my fist. It was over. The Magic Armor version 1 was a serious force to be reckoned with. All my attacks had cut straight through their defenses, and I'd barely taken a single hit. Fighting like this almost felt kind of unsporting. The other Temple Knights lay collapsed around Therese and me. None of them were dead. Great. I didn't like killing people when I could avoid it, unless they were disciples of the man God. That was my rule. Besides, these guys were never much of a threat. Whew, that feels better. Amazing how good it felt to vent some of the frustration I'd built up lately. Maybe it was good for me to get into a real fight every now and then. I wondered if I should take a leaf out of Eris's book and... Never mind. That'd be too much violence. Now what do? I wondered. After this, the Temple Knights and I were definitely enemies. Who ratted me out in the first place? The list of people who knew about the kidnapping idea included me, Geese, and Aisha, and then Cliff and the Pope. Maybe the girl at Cliff's place as well? I ruled Aisha out right away. If she wanted to betray me, she could have hit me closer to home. Big brother, piggyback, she'd say, all cute. Then while I was distracted by her breast pressed up against my back, she'd slit my throat. Simpler still, she could poison my drink. Big brother, I made this especially for you, would be all she'd have to say, and I'd be toast. I was pretty sure Geese and Cliff were safe too. I categorized them together. Neither of them needed a big complicated plan to get the better of me. That left the Pope, but why would the Pope pick this moment to get rid of me? What was in it for him? No, I was looking at this the wrong way. Maybe he just wanted to pit me against the Temple Knights. Looking at it from his perspective, I'd said I'd support him, but I hadn't actually followed through. Maybe he plotted this because he was sick of me popping in all the time. Then, while her guards were out here occupied with me, the Pope's people snuck in and kidnapped the blessed child themselves. Wait, hadn't Therese said her information came from a trustworthy source? The Pope was her enemy. Definitely not a trustworthy source. The kidnapping line might have been a coincidence, a lie someone had made up, then tried to pin on me. No, wait. Not a coincidence? This could be the man God's plot. His disciples could be lurking somewhere in the shadows right now. Yeah, that was a more straightforward explanation than betrayal, and it was more likely. Hell, if I knew what his angle was, and anyway, it'd be based on whatever he saw in the future. The bastard had his tentacles in every nasty thing that ever happened. I couldn't pin down the culprit with only the information I had. I was just wasting my time overthinking it. I had a more immediate problem. As of right now, I was accumulating enemies. I didn't know if anything had happened to the Blessed Child, but I'd really done a number on her guards. The Cardinalist faction wasn't gonna like it. First, they'd arrest me for the attempted kidnapping of the Blessed Child. Then they'd follow the trail of breadcrumbs to get Cliff, the one who brought me to Millis, and then they'd go for the Pope. Hold on. Didn't that mean the Pope hadn't orchestrated this? Was it the Cardinal? Come on, we've been over this. Quit worrying about who's behind this and plan your next move. But against what? Who? Part of me wanted to pack everyone up and get the hell out of the city. But I had Zenith to consider. No way was I leaving her behind. I could go to the Latry estate right now and bust her out. But what if she wasn't there? What if, while I was busy working with Therese, Claire had moved Zenith to a new location? Was I going to end up burning the whole of Millis to the ground fighting these knights? Oh, the man god would love that. But what the hell? Maybe I should do it anyway. First order of business, get Aisha, Geese, and Cliff out of harm's way. Then I'd go to the Latria estate and retrieve Zenith. If she wasn't there, I'd head for the castle, grab a member of the royal family, and demand an exchange of hostages. There, cool, done. I was so tired of thinking about this. Came a voice. I looked over past the mess Quagmire had made of the garden to the door to the inner sanctum. In front of the door, holding the special key that operated its lock, stood a girl. She was alone. I realized she was looking into my eyes. I immediately tried to avert my gaze, but it was too late. A look of perfect understanding washed over her face, and she smiled. Then she held her arms out to me as though welcoming me. When I saw it, it clicked. Maybe it was just an instinct, but I axes tourtière. I kidnapped the blessed child. Chapter 4, Hardball Negotiations. There's an old saying, when you swallow poison, don't forget the plate. In other words, if you've been poisoned, you might as well eat the plate that came with it. This proverb was from an era where it was normal to use hard bread in place of a plate. You put meat or whatever the main dish was on top to give it flavor, then tore it up and dipped it in soup to soften it before you ate it. Don't forget the plate, therefore meant finish your meal. Eat everything you're given, even if it's poison. Everything's a gift. Yeah, I'm just bullshitting. What it actually means is, if you're going to die anyway, you might as well get a little adventurous. It's quite a positive message. You usually don't eat plates, after all. The idea is that if the poison kills you or the porcelain shredding your stomach does it, it's the same difference. Might as well live a little. I made that up too, obviously. Anyway, at that moment, I was in the building Aisha had set up as the mercenary office. It was in the merchant district underneath a closed-down bar. I was surrounded by barrels of preserved food and rows of black coats yet to be processed. The teleportation scroll had brought me here, a bidirectional teleportation circle I'd set up just in case something like this happened. Sitting in front of me was a woman. She always put on a cutesy little girl act, but in reality she was probably over 20 years old.
This place has a lot of character, doesn't it?
She sat with her knees bent and her feet to her sides, right down on the dusty floor, even though I hadn't bound her hands or feet or anything. I'd taken her from the garden to here. What were you thinking? Appearing at that critical moment, then not even trying to run away. When I thought about it, the timing of her entrance had been perfect. It was like she'd been lying in wait so that she could politely cooperate with my kidnapping scheme.
He happened to step out and that's all. No one told me about that terrible fight. When I came out and everything was all covered in mist, it gave me quite a scare.
You made up your mind pretty quick for someone who happened to step out then. You're lying.
Oh, yes. The truth is, I looked into the memories of one of my manders and learned what the reason the others were going to do to you. That's why I came outside.
Huh? You were coming to rescue me?
That's right. Then when I came out and looked into your eyes, I knew what had happened right away.
The moment she made eye contact with someone, she could see their memories. It was impressive that she'd found my eyes through the magic armor. But maybe that was a part of the power. It wasn't like I understood Zenoba's uncanny ability either.
I am on your side.
I didn't reply. Instead, I pointed a finger at her. When you swallow poison, don't forget the plate. I'd already kidnapped her, so I was already screwed. No more plans. We're doing this. I had 2 cards left to play, myself and this girl. Let's imagine the worst-case scenario. The Pope, the Cardinal, Therese, and Claire were all my enemies. Working as agents of the man-god, they'd already taken Cliff, Aisha, and Geese prisoner. In the half-hour or so since I took the blessed child, the Temple Knights were already... My assumption that no one had seen me teleport was wrong. Someone had seen me, and the Temple Knights were headed here now. I hadn't had time to set up a transport circle for the Magic Armor version 1, so I'd cast Quagmire to bury it in the garden for the time being. But the Temple Knights had already dug it out and carted it away. That would be about as bad as it could get. Bad enough that if things actually turned out that way, I'd be screwed. I had to find a way out of it with just 2 cards, my own fighting abilities, and the Blessed Child. Blessed Child, before I trust you, I have some questions. If I was going to make this work, I needed to question the Blessed Child. I could decide whether I could rely on her later right now. I needed information. What is your power as a Blessed Child?
Don't you already know?
I want to hear it from you. She might tell me something different from Orsted. I wanted to check.
You can see the surface of people's memories.
The surface?
Yes. Things that are on their mind and the associated memories. Only a little, though.
What's the difference between that and reading minds?
The difference is that I only see the past. Though if I maintain eye contact, I can go back as far as their memories extend.
So it's less that she sees into their memories than that she sees bits of their past that relate to whatever they're thinking about. You only see it?
That is correct.
Say a person lost their mind. Could you bring them back to themselves?
No. I imagine it could be possible if I use my powers in conjunction with healing magic, though.
She can't bring Zenith back. Meaning, you can't actually read minds.
No, but I can use what I see to guess.
She couldn't see what I was thinking right now, but it was impossible to carry on a conversation while constantly thinking about something else. If someone asks you, "What did you have for breakfast?" you're not going to have scientific musings about why the sky is blue at the front of your mind. I see why no one with a guilty conscience wants to meet your eyes. She was a lie detector through and through. All she had to say was that your eyes had met, and that was enough to establish guilt. There was no way to tell if she herself was lying, but I guess nobody watches The Watchmen. She could condemn anyone she didn't like. That was how it worked for a blessed child. You only had to look at Zenoba to see how this kind of power made you an asset and an incredible threat. So long as someone with power backed you up, you'd be safe.
You aren't averting your eyes, Sir Rudeus.
I guess my conscience is clean. I'd kept my eyes on hers for a while now. Part of it was just that I didn't give a damn anymore, but also, if she could see the past, maintaining eye contact would save me a lot of time explaining.
Perhaps not, but are you sure you don't mind me knowing everything else? What goodness. Sir said as a curse like that. Ah, the man God. Their first word. Oh dear. Two at once, dear me. Two, yet still love. Oh, an altar. Wait. Oh.
She was sweating and out of breath. Saw something you shouldn't have, What did you see?
It is, I see those not of Emilia's faith have rather extreme and, that is to say, different rituals to ours.
You just saw the core of my soul, she said, flattening the hem of her skirt and drawing back from me a little. Relax. Maybe the Roxy faith isn't as pure as yours here in Millis, but it's still a pretty nice shade of blue. You won't find any Irodusian stuff here. We both coughed. Let's get back to business.
Yes, that sounds good.
The blessed child seeing all that wouldn't cause me any problems, but it was a bit embarrassing having someone know about it. If she'd seen me doing it with both of them, she might know what I said then, too. It's not like that. I just got a bit overexcited and it slipped out. This never happens to me. Anyway, back to our conversation. First, I want to know how this happened. Who do you think is pulling the strings here?
Imagine either His Holiness the Pope or the Cardinal who wants to depose him. I shouldn't think that the man God is involved.
So the top dogs are the demon expulsionists. But what about the Latrias? You don't think the Latrias are involved?
It is possible someone else is using them, but I don't think they're behind all of this.
So Zenith's abduction wasn't related. Right now we were down to the Papalists or the Cardinalists. Both leaders were suspect. What makes you think the man God isn't involved?
If His Holiness were to submit to the man God, it would bring disgrace upon the whole of the Millis Church. His Holiness may not be a good person, but I cannot fault his faith.
But how can you be sure?
When I look into his eyes, I shall know.
Okay, stupid question. Could I trust her?
If you don't trust me, you'll be better reserved using me as a hostage to get what you want.
I'm not holding enough cards to make that work. The Temple Mites are probably already moving in on me. Even if I demanded something in exchange for you, I'd still...
I am everything to the Temple Knights. The Temple Knights know, the whole demon expulsionist faction know, that if I die, they lose their chance at victory.
Basically, whenever they try to tell me, if I go hardball and threaten to kill you, they'll do anything I want,
I flatter myself to say that yes, I am that valuable.
I wonder. Crap. I better not have to watch Aisha die in front of me because I trusted you. The Temple Knights aren't dumb and they're not incompetent either. For all I know, they arrested Aisha and already got this location out of her. Hell, they wouldn't even have to do that. If they were keeping an eye on me, they'll come looking here right away. They could charge in and rescue you while I'm off making my demands at the church headquarters.
Then clearly you should take me with you when you make your demands.
Bold move, but if they ambush us on the way, it could turn into an all-out battle.
Surely you could take down the lot of them. You held your own against the likes of Sororse and Nover, did you not?
She'd seen that too? Sure, it was possible that I could hold off the Temple Knights. Not to brag, but I've done my fair share of mowing down small-timers. You could call me Rudeus Camp the Noob's Greyrat. Back in the garden battle, I took care to hold myself back, but if I'd been fighting to kill, they wouldn't have stood a chance.
Besides, if we were attacked, it would be by papalists, not the Temple Knights.
How do you figure?
The Temple Knights won't do anything that could risk my death. The Pope, on the other hand, would be delighted if I just happened to die.
If you ask them, of course the Papalists protected the Blessed Child, if there happened to be a fight and she happened to get killed in the crossfire. However, that would only be good news for... What if the Temple Knights use barrier magic or something to steal you back without risking you getting hurt?
You who's defeated the best fighters in the Temple Knights. It's not their style to repeat a failing strategy. They wouldn't take the risk.
The guys from before were their best fighters? I mean, they coordinated well, but seriously? No, come on, that's not fair. They were good enough to keep firing magic at me even while dodging my stone cannons. And that guy didn't hesitate when he tried to go up against my magic armor with a sword. Assuming they were, on average, advanced level sword god style and advanced level water god style, with intermediate attack magic, intermediate barrier magic, and intermediate healing magic, they were a seriously elite and versatile team. There was a bit of individual variation to account for, but their seamless coordination against me was a testament to their overall caliber. Okay, Therese was a class below the others, but she'd been a capable commander. I was pretty sure that I could have held my own even without the version 1, but they would have had a real shot. I'd still taken out their best guys, though, so maybe she was right. Hold up, we're only talking about the Temple Knights here. Aren't there missionary knights and sanctuary knights as well?
Those orders serve the Holy Country of Millis. They don't get involved in the petty quarrels of the church. Besides, the missionary knights are out of the country at present.
They're not even here? I was starting to feel like I might have a chance. I'd show them my hostage and engage them in fair and honest negotiations. After this sudden violent attack, I, the almighty Rudeus, follower of Orsted, have taken offense. Though I would be within my rights to draw and quarter the Blessed Child and cast down the light of the Holy Church of Millis, I shall be merciful. If you comply with my demands and apologize directly, I shall forgive you and spare the Blessed Child's life. Work in progress, we'll go with that. While I negotiated, I'd get the Blessed Child to work out who'd betrayed me and the identities of the man-god's disciples. It was possible that some of this would come and bite me in the ass later, but assuming the negotiations themselves went smoothly, I was confident we could get out of the country unscathed. The mercenary band would probably have to wait. That was fine. I'd come back in a few years once Cliff had established himself as a major player, and we'd talk then. I'd have to keep an eye on things, though. If, for example, it turned out that the Pope was a disciple of the man-god, I'd have no choice but to tear Cliff away from his ambitions in Millis. It wouldn't be fair to him, but sometimes life is unfair.
If the other knight orders concern you, I suggest you act sooner rather than later. If they did arrest one of your friends, the longer we wait, the more likely it is that something terrible will happen.
Agreed. Only an hour had passed since I'd kidnapped the Blessed Child. The worst-case scenario was that Aisha and Geese were already under arrest, but there was no way the knights had had time to find them both, arrest them, and torture them yet. Still, the longer I hid, the more desperate they would become. People do crazy things when they're desperate. Okay? The next bit is going to be a gamble. If this goes wrong, someone is going to die along with the blessed child. I have to be ready for that. I wanted to feel ready, but I didn't. What I wanted was a trump card to store up my sleeve. Hey. Why are you helping me anyway? How come you just stood by and let me kidnap you? The blessed child gazed at me, puzzled, and she smiled softly. Now that was a smile, befitting the symbol of the Millis church.
I owe my life to you and the warrior of Super Tribe.
Did she see that in my memories? Or did she look into Eris's memories last time? Impossible to say, but it was Reincarnation and me who brought Eris to Millis last time. I was skeptical all the same. Her answer was too much like what I wanted to hear.
Does that not convince you? Then now about this. I was angry to see my new friend and my most trusted servants forced to kill one another. I also wanted to thank you for all the time you spent with me making me laugh, and for the picture you made for me. As San Milas says, "Thou shalt be gracious and repay that which thou receivest." From the beginning, I intended to find a way to help you in secret, when you came seeking assistance on your mother's behalf. But you did not ask it of me.
When I still didn't say anything, the blessed child pouted and said,
You only kidnapped me in the first place because a single glance told you that I wasn't your enemy. Isn't that right?
I suppose. Yeah, I suppose I had thought that. That was why I'd grabbed her right away and how we ended up back here having this conversation. Right, too late to have second thoughts. Ending up on the back foot is what got me into this mess, and thinking isn't going to make it better. When I went in next, I needed to make sure I was in a stronger position so I could get what I wanted. My goals were as follows. 1. Get Zenith back. 2. Guarantee Aisha, Geese, and Cliff's safety. 3. Make sure I didn't cause problems for Cliff down the road. 4. Get the mercenary band up and running. 5. Get permission to sell Rudeus figures. 6. Make Millis my ally. My immediate objective was to tick off 1 and 2. This time, I was going to make the first move. I'd drawn a good card, the Blessed Child. Not that I was a dud card myself, mind you. The thing to do now, then, was to take my turn first and without warning, before yet another idiot who didn't understand what was going on could complicate things. If this all gets worked out, and I don't make enemies, I'll bring Eris to visit next time.
Please do.
Off we go, then. Back to the church we went. It must have been 2 or 3 hours since my fight with Teresa's gang. There wasn't a single temple knight out on the streets. It was almost eerie. That had to mean Geese and Cliff hadn't informed on me. I'd gotten myself and the Blessed Child out of the garden with a teleportation scroll. Most of society didn't even know that teleportation circles existed, never mind scrolls. The temple knights had sealed the entrance to the garden, so the logical assumption was that we were still inside. It would take whoever was in charge maybe an hour to deduce that we'd gotten out, and then they'd move on to the next step. Calling in the rest of the temple knights to search the city, tack on another hour to put together a search team. Finally, I added an hour for delays and holdups. By now, they might have locked the city gate, but they shouldn't have mobilized quite yet. Mobilizing a sprawling outfit like that isn't easy. Cliff and Geese were both aware of teleportation circles. Geese was there when I set this one up as an emergency escape route, and Cliff helped when I drew the teleportation circle in the basement of our office in Sharia. More to the point, if Cliff or Geese had turned on me, the Temple Knights would have known where the teleportation circle led to. I could rule them out right now as snitches. But the Pope and the Cardinal should have guessed I was getting around using teleportation circles. They'd collected enough intel on me. The same went if the man god was pulling the strings from behind the scenes. I'd ruled out every suspect. Weird. Just a few hours had passed, but surely my opponent was back-footed. There was no way Therese had actually been acting alone, right? We arrived at the church headquarters while I mused on the matter. As we approached, a procession of dudes in blue armor came filing out, one after another.
It's the blessed child. Rudeus brought the blessed child. Call for reinforcements.
More and more and more of them emerged from the church and from the city around us. In a moment, we were surrounded. How was I going to pull this off?
Sir Rudeus, wherever you do, don't let go of me.
I didn't reply. She was my lifeline. I kept my grip on her arms. None of the temple knights had their swords out, but they sounded pretty upset. They weren't going to risk hurting her, just like the blessed child had said.
How could you treat her with such violence? By taking the blessed child hostage, you bring shame upon all believers in Millis. You won't get away with this. Rudeus, you bastard. Even I've never laid hands on the blessed child. That's
an interesting thing to be mad about, I thought. Before I could even get a word in, everyone had assumed that the blessed child was my hostage. Okay, well, not wrong. After knocking out her guard and spiriting her away, what else were they supposed to think? Maybe whoever was behind all this knew how it'd look.
Captain, let's get him. After his fight with the Keepers of Anastasia, he can't have much magic left. Not yet. He must have enough in reserve to kill the blessed child. No problem. If we all attack together, he'll save his own skin before he tries to harm her.
That one kept trying to rile the others up. Was this the mastermind's agent? Who does he serve? The man god?
No. It works for His Holiness the Pope. He has no connection to the man god, and I don't think he knows the details of what's happened.
Okay, yeah, maybe I'm getting paranoid. Right, time to get the ball rolling. I demand to speak to the Pope about today's events. Out of my way. In response, the Temple Knights got rowdier.
How dare you? You think the Pope will grant an audience to a worm like you? Release the blessed child at once and face judgment.
A few even began to draw their swords. When the blessed child twitched in my arms, though, all of them begrudgingly returned their swords to their scabbards. Hot damn, they're totally powerless against her. I got the picture after the Keepers of Anastasia, but she's literally an idol to them. Here goes. My name is Rudeus Greyrat. I represent the dragon god Orsted. I swear upon his mighty name that I do not wish to harm the blessed child. I raised my left hand, showing them the glittering bracelet Orsted had given me. It wasn't the strongest proof of identity, but it made for a decent bluff. However, if my request to speak with the Pope is denied, I cannot guarantee her safety. Know that by making an enemy of Rudeus Greyrat, the Church of Millis will be the enemy of the Dragon God and all his followers. I was playing hardball here. I'd even memorized a little speech. I was using Orsted's name without permission, but that should be fine. Also, he didn't actually have that many followers. Details. The Temple Knights recoiled a step away from me. With just a few words, I'd made them see me not as a petty child nabber, but a big deal with organizational backing. I had my cards lined up. Great. I demand an explanation from His Holiness himself for the disgraceful assault I suffered earlier today. Why was an attempt made on the life of the Dragon God's representative? Why is my mother being held captive? The answers to these questions will decide whether your blessed child lives or dies. Hey, I'm just a visitor here. One day, without warning, I was accused of plotting a kidnapping and an attempt was made on my life. Now I'm mad. Really, I'm furious. I want an apology and compensation. And while I'm here, I'm making Zenith, the Holy Millis Church's problem too. There was a pause.
What do we do? What are we supposed to do? He's got the blessed child as his hostage.
The Temple Knights still didn't let me through. They kept dithering. I guess a bunch of grunts didn't want to make the call themselves. Maybe if I waited, their commander would come out, at least. That's what I was thinking when...
Let him through. Get out of the way! Are you going to let the blessed child be killed in front of us?
All of a sudden, there was a minor commotion at the back of the group. 4 men and women pushed their way through. I knew 3 of them. They were from the Keepers of Anastasia. It hurt to look at the dents in their armor. One of the 3 was Therese. She saw me, then looked down in shame. The fourth person was a man in his late 50s with a white beard. His face was covered in deep wrinkles, but his gaze was sharp and youthful. Who was he? I'd never seen him before. He wore blue armor, the Temple Knight uniform, but his armor was a little more elaborate than the others, a level up from Therese's. If the dudes around us were normal Temple Knights, and the Keepers of Anastasia were grunt Temple Knights, and Therese was elite, then this guy was the king of the Temple Knights.
I am the commander of the Sword Company of the Temple Knights. My name is Carlyle Latra.
Oh, so this is Carlyle, Grandpa. I'm sorry we have to meet under such circumstances. I am Rudeus Greyrat, son of Zenith Greyrat. Carlyle eyed me like a hawk. His eyes were even more piercing than Claire's. On that point, husband and wife resembled each other. I didn't want to fall into a verbal tug-of-war with this guy.
Is that all?
No. It took me a moment to work out what he meant, but then I remembered my exchange with Claire and shook my head. Here, I was Orsted's follower. I was still Zenith's son, of course, but that wasn't the role I was assuming here. There couldn't be fair negotiations unless we saw each other as equals. I am Rudeus Greyrat, representative of the dragon god Orsted. I have come to demand an audience with His Holiness the Pope. After I was finished, Carlyle's face softened for a brief moment. He said. Then his expression closed off again.
I'll take you. Come.
With that hard look fixed on his face, he turned and marched away. Therese and the others followed, looking troubled. What do you think?
It appears that Therese was merely following the orders of the Cardinal. Carlyle wouldn't meet my eyes, so for him I cannot say.
That's a handy trick. So Carlyle was a mystery. He didn't feel like an enemy, but I didn't trust him. Best to stay on guard. Leaving behind the Temple Knights who stood back, watching us from a safe distance, I went after Carlyle and the others. He led me directly to the inner sanctum. As we walked, the other members of the Keepers of Anastasia formed up around us. They weren't wearing their helmets this time. All of them were up and on their own feet, probably thanks to healing magic. I wasn't letting my guard down, but their plan wasn't to attack me. Clearly, in a head-on battle, I'd broken through their precious king tier barrier and soundly beat every last one of them to a pulp. While they hadn't been fighting to kill either, I'd gone easy on them. They knew it. We were all very clear on who was stronger here, and by how much. On top of that, I had the Blessed Child. They weren't about to pick a fight with the guy who'd KO'd them only hours ago when her life was on the line. Why did everyone look so awkward anyway? Mr. Dust was the worst. He'd been avoiding my eyes the whole time. I wasn't feeling hostility, though. That wasn't the vibe. They didn't seem wary of me at all, actually. If I didn't know better, I'd say they were guarding me. We kept walking through the inner sanctum for a while. Before I knew it, I'd lost all sense of direction. Blame it on the slight curve in the passage combined with however many 70-degree corners we'd turned. Last time I was here, I thought this twisty maze of passages were too alike. This is like a labyrinth.
Indeed. It was built this way so the Pope and I can make a quick escape if necessary.
So it wasn't barrier magic or something of that nature then. I didn't need to worry about suddenly being put to sleep or tripping a booby trap.
That's right.
The fanboy started proudly chattering around us.
The Blessed Child knows every inch of these passageways. She always used to get away from us when we played tag.
So it was designed like this to let the important people get out. Standard security, but I was starting to lose track of where I was. If I were ambushed from behind, there was no way out. Wait, no, I could just smash through the ceiling and get out that way. Or the walls, well, they probably had barrier magic on them, but the Stone of Absorption should take care of that. Okay, I should probably have thought this through a bit more before I dove in, but everything's going to be fine. Are we almost there? I'd rather not go too far and...
Just a little further.
Really, you'd better not be leading me into a trap. I turned a wary eye to the other guys behind us. They all flinched, then started protesting.
Lord Carlyle, you mustn't be rude. At least turn around when you address him. Who knows what he might do to the Blessed Child if he gets upset? My lord, look at these dents. Do you see what he did to my Temple Knight armor? He wields incredible power. Imagine the horrible mark he might leave on the blessed child if we offended him.
Silence. I love you.
And the otaku shut up. Carlyle stopped walking, then turned, slowly, to face me.
Just a little further.
Thank you, I said with a nod, and we continued on. We only took another 10 steps or so, then Carlyle stopped in front of a door and knocked.
I have brought Rudeus Greyrat to see you, Your Holiness.
It really was just a little further. I felt kind of bad for rushing him. Now I thought about it, I didn't know which direction I was facing anymore, but we'd only actually turned 2 corners. If I needed an escape route, I had one.
Enter.
Carlyle faced the door, said a brief prayer, then opened it. He held the door and gestured for me to enter.
Go ahead.
Keeping my grip firmly on the blessed child, I went into the room. Part of me thought surely now I could let go of her, but no. I couldn't let my guard down yet. I found myself in what looked like a meeting room. There was a long table at which 10 people sat facing each other. One of them was the Pope. Cliff was there too, and an old man wearing a luxurious vestment similar to the Pope's. That had to be the Cardinal. There was also a man clad in white armor. In the back of the room, 7 knights stood with their hands clasped behind their backs. 2 of them I recognized as the Pope's guards. Everyone was looking at me. It looked like my entrance had interrupted a fierce debate. They stared wordlessly toward us. At the far end of the table sat 2 more people. One was an old lady, her lips set in a hard line as she glared at me. Claire Latria, and beside her, she's here, I thought. I finally found her. Seated beside Claire, a woman gazed up at the ceiling with empty eyes. She was close to 40, but she looked younger. The woman my father had loved more than anyone in the world. It was my mother, Zenith. Wait, I thought. Why are they here? What was going on? I hadn't made any demands yet. I hadn't told anyone to bring Zenith to me. The door slamming shut behind me shattered the silence. The temple knights moved into position in front of it, standing in a row as though to face down the knights in the back of the room. Therese alone took a position at the table.
Now that all the pieces are on the board, let's talk, shall we?
Apparently, a lot had happened in the last few hours. So much for making the first move. I was a pawn in someone else's plan. Again.
Rudeus, blessed child, won't you both take your seats?
It looked like I had a talent for getting caught off guard, but I hadn't lost yet. Let's see where this goes. Chapter 5. What's stopping you? I kept the shock I felt from seeing Zenith and Claire from showing on my face, I think. I wasn't sure I could win this standoff or that everything would turn out okay. The only thing I could control was me, and I'd do what I could. It only took a second to run a mental simulation of how to get Zenith out. I couldn't use a teleportation circle in front of this many people, but I had a good idea of the capabilities of the Temple Knights. I didn't know how strong the Temple Knights lined up behind the Pope were, but if the Blessed Child were telling the truth, they wouldn't be stronger than the keepers of Anastasia. I could get Zenith. Just knowing that, I'd as good as achieved one of my goals. I'd get Zenith and Cliff, then get Aisha and Geese. Then we'd get the hell out. I was worried Aisha and Geese were being held somewhere, but I could find out if and where from one of these guys. With that plan in mind, I escorted the Blessed Child to her chair and stood beside her. I kept tight hold of her arms. I'm so glad you're all here. It'll make everything go more quickly. I was perfectly calm. The words rolled easily off my tongue. It'd been a while since I felt like myself. I believe this is the first time a number of us have met. I represent the dragon god Arsted, and I came here to deepen his bonds of friendship with the Millis Church. The title of dragon god sent a ripple of unease shivering around the table. No one here had met Orsted in person, and I seriously doubted any of them knew about his objectives. What we were up against. Possibly some of them hadn't even heard of the 7 great powers. But everyone knew the title Dragon God. It was usually found alongside another title, Demon God. Owing to unfortunate circumstances, I currently hold the Blessed Child's life in my hands. I pointed at her and concentrated my magic to make a lighter-sized flame at my fingertip. The tension in the room mounted. I can't tell you how much I regret that it had to come to this. To stoop to taking hostages is to bring dishonor upon the name of a superlative uber beam like Sir Orsted. Alas, it was a necessary measure in order to facilitate these negotiations and to guarantee my own safety and that of my subordinates. I hope you all understand.
A superlative Uber.
My tongue ran away with me there. I wasn't trying to be funny, promise. Why was this attempt made upon my life? Why was I forced to bring shame upon my master's name? My eyes came to rest on Claire. She was frowning. Would anyone here care to explain? If no explanation is forthcoming, I, along with the dragon god Orsted and all his followers, will have no choice but to move to open hostilities with the Millis Church. This wasn't an empty threat. If the man-god had the top members of the Millis Church in his back pocket, then it was a potential development I had to consider. The room stayed silent. Not one person took the bait. No cries of "bring it on," then. Were they all freaked out by the fight earlier today? Or did I say something weird again? Well, at the very least, I'd made it clear that I was pissed off.
Lord Rudeus, I appreciate that you are angry. However, as you yourself acknowledge, you are unacquainted with several of our number gathered here today. May I introduce everyone? I won't take too much of your time.
I tried to work out what his angle was. Why would he make introductions? To buy time? Were his people capturing Aisha as we spoke? But there weren't that many people here. It couldn't hurt to know a bit more about the others. It's important when making demands to do everything in the right order. People will only hear you out if you condition them properly. If all you do is chatter what you want to say when they're not ready to listen, nothing will get through. Of course, I shouldn't have rushed things.
Thank you. Cliff, if you'd be so kind.
Yes, Your Holiness. Good day, everyone. I am Father Cliff Grimmer. His Holiness Pope Harry Grimmer is my grandfather.
He took a step back from the table. Apparently, Cliff would serve as our MC.
May I ask you to begin, Cardinal LeBlanc?
The man whose vestments rivaled the Pope stood up. His face was, in a word, fat. It was perfectly round, like a certain bread-faced ally of justice. He was also the head honcho of the demon expulsionists.
I am Cardinal LeBlanc MacFarlane. I supervise the Temple Knights and assist the Holy Father.
In other words, he was effectively number 2 in the whole of the Millis Church. Right, the Cardinal's job was advising the Pope, a bit like the Prime Minister in a monarchy. The Pope and his relationship to the Cardinals in the Millis Church weren't quite like ones in the religion I knew. I did know this Pope and this Cardinal were definitely working against each other, though. He's got his eyes on becoming the next Pope. I wonder if they hold elections every few years or something. As I thought this, the Cardinal sat down. So by introduction, he literally just meant name and occupation.
Sir Beltmond?
A man in white armor sat next to LeBlanc stood up. His face was scarred and he only had one eye. He looked about 40. The white armor meant he was a cathedral knight. Man, did he look grim. From what I remembered, the cathedral knights were sort of like the paladins of Millis. He must be ticked off that I'd caused havoc in his town.
I am Belamon Nashvenik, Deputy Commander of the Arrow Company of the Cathedral Knights,
he said curtly, then sat down again. Haven't I heard that name somewhere before? He kept glaring steadily at me but didn't comment. Maybe his face just reminded me of someone, like Orsted or Rudeus. Ah, now I remembered. That night Rudeus knew had a similar name. Yeah, Galgard Nashvenik. Gash, for short. I knew a Galgard Nashvenik.
I'm his son.
He's a man I was glad to have known. Interesting. His father was a missionary knight, but it had been acceptable for him to join a different order. Well, he'd made it to deputy commander, so I guess he hadn't failed in his filial duties.
Sir Railbard.
2 more knights in white armor came next. I didn't know them, but they introduced themselves as Arrow Company senior captains. These companies were some kind of military unit type affair. Senior captain was the next most important rank after the commander, deputy commander, and company leader.
Lord Carlisle.
You may skip me. Rudeus and I spoke earlier,
said Carlisle Latria, declining to introduce himself. I wondered if that was allowed, but then realized the Pope hadn't introduced himself either. Claire would probably opt out too. The introductions continued. There was an archbishop and the company leader from the Temple Knights Shield Company. I decided to remember their names just in case. It might never be important, but there was no harm in knowing. At times like these, I wish we could exchange business cards.
Lady Claire.
She'd been called. What was she even doing here amongst all these important folk? Was she some sort of witness? Maybe she was the one who'd spread the fake rumor about me kidnapping the blessed child. And why had she brought Zenith? Part of me wanted to demand answers right away, but I got the feeling an explanation was coming. Best to be patient for now.
I am Claire Latria, wife of Count Carlisle Latria, and this is my daughter, Zenith. Please forgive her demeanor. I am afraid she is unwell.
Claire said primly, then sat down. That seemed to be everyone present. The guards hadn't introduced themselves, but that probably just meant they didn't get a voice at this table.
Very good. Now that Lord Rudeus is with us, I would like to hear what happened.
Our discussion began. First of all, Rudeus. I'd like to clearly establish the context for all this. Do you mind? From the Pope's choice of words, I guessed that he had gotten wind of what happened not long ago himself. No objections here. I'd like to hear it. Several hours had passed since the fight. That the Cardinal and the important folk from each Knight Order were all gathered here seemed a bit suspicious, but the Order commander's absence tempered that somewhat. It felt more like, upon hearing of the Blessed Child's abduction, they'd grabbed the most important people they had on hand, though it struck me as a bit odd to see the Temple Knights who'd been in the middle of all this standing here.
All right. Where shall we begin? Forgive me, I heard the details but a few moments prior. I haven't had time to process it yet.
He rubbed his brow. A man raised his hand. It was Sir Bellamond. Besh, if I remembered right.